that played around the league, did we all kind of sit idly by and just kind of pass it off and say, oh, well, it wasn't bad. There was a bit of stick from the crowd. And did we just let it go, but it wasn't too bad?
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
7:30 Friday morning, OTB AM. Very good morning to you and welcome along to the show. Packed show is always coming your way between now and 10 this morning. Oh, and good morning. Colm, how are you?
Adrian, Francis Barry.
That was this weird moment on air where we're like, oh, how are you getting on? You're here, I'm here.
Yeah, but don't worry, everybody.
He's over there. Oh, and how are you getting on?
Good, lads. What's the crack?
Where are you?
I am outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I've just sat here thinking about life decisions all night, watching the people come and go, people go home in the middle of the night, people get up in the middle of the night to go to work, people go about their day while I've just sat here thinking.
Wallowing in your tears. That's
it. Tears of sadness and tears of realisation that Arsenal are always going to Arsenal.
They really are. I was talking to, we were both on the news round last night, we were talking to Nathan, we were saying it'd be the most Arsenal thing of all time if at this point, given all the credit they've been given all season and how well they're doing, and everybody talking, including your mate Ainsley, about that 4-point gap and how, you know, last night was an important game. If they get away with a draw, not so bad. I mean, if they get beaten, it doesn't really matter because they can go on and kick on to the end of the season. But the most Arsenal thing of all time, Eoin, is upon us, isn't it?
I'm not, I don't know, to be honest. I think that the reason why people were pretty confident about a 4-point gap is that if there was a bit of a catastrophe last night, then there was still a small cushion. And Arsenal have rebounded weirdly from bad spells in the not too distant past. When they lost those 3 games in a row last month, it seemed as if the whole season was over. And then they beat Manchester United and Chelsea and West Ham in back-to-back games. And all of a sudden this top 4 thing was back on after it seemed like it was doomed. So I think that it's not over, and
but
the reason
fixture
why people
list, somebody think of the fixture list.
What do you mean? You think that the Newcastle game is a significant challenge? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
It probably is. Newcastle don't have anything to play for. And you obviously know what Burnley did to Tottenham in their last fixture when they played in the league. It looked like Conte was almost going to walk out the last time they played Burnley. So I think that the main reason why you would be concerned about these last couple of games is because Arsenal's momentum has been completely halted after last night. I'm actually not convinced it's got all that much to do with the opponents that are playing in the last couple of games. I think this probably comes back to your point. I think if they don't pick up 6 points in the last couple of games, it will be an Arsenal job because they'll have done something stupid themselves, or, you know, the suspension now and the injury to Gabriel all feels quite Arsenal and all feels like something that will lead them to concede a goal that they shouldn't concede on Monday night, for example, and that might lead to a 1-1 draw, and all of a sudden the whole thing is dust. So It's hard to know how Arsenal it is, but I do think that it might be self-inflicted if they weren't to get 6 points from here. It
might be the beginning of an Arsenal. We'll talk a bit more about that and the Arteta interview, particularly obviously after the game, in just a little bit, and those 2 lads over your right hand shoulder. What was it like in the stadium last night? What sort of a JD is raving about this place as a ground?
Yeah, genuinely amazing, absolutely amazing, and it does feel that Spurs are onto something special. This is my first time at the stadium, and I'm getting a North London derby which had a lot riding on it. So I expected to get the best version of this stadium out there. But obviously, it does seem that there is only so much of a level that it can actually drop down to on its worst days as well. So I think that they're really on something special with this place. The fan base are fully behind this team, as you'd expect them to be for a North London derby as well. Everybody desperately wants Conte to stay. It feels like they're on the right path, or so they have been over the last couple of months as well. They've got a stadium to match it. There's a chance they'll have Champions League football to match it next season. It's sickening if you don't like Tottenham all that much with how beautiful the whole thing is.
What's so special about it?
good question. That's the intangible, isn't it, when it comes to it? It's just the genuine sense of noise all around the place last night. Maybe I'm kind of like basing it on the fact that I've just been in the Aviva Stadium a lot over the last couple of months.
And Porky Rin, as one of our YouTubers pointed out,
yeah, good point. Where like sound like leaks out, it did feel. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that the south stand in this stadium behind me was kind of like modelled on the cop or the yellow wall. It did feel a little bit pretentious, but it does actually work, and it is an intimidating place to play in front of. You had Arsenal players taking corners and having projectiles in their general direction from that stand, but it is right on top of you. There is very, very little breathing room between the goal and that stand, and the same goes for the other end. It's a massive stadium, and all of the Tottenham fans are right on top of you. It almost felt last night, how does anybody come here and actually win? But it always feels like that when a team has a significant win and they win 3-0. It always feels like a team can't be beaten, or the team that does get beaten is in a terrible, terrible place. But the noise and the sense that this is a stadium where special things are about to happen. You definitely got that sense from last night. Whether or not it does, I'm not sure. Like, Arsenal could win their last 2 games, Conte could get fed up and walk out, and all of a sudden they've got a massive stadium that they may not even be able to fill over the next little while. But last night, if you were judging it on last night, you would definitely be thinking, wow, okay, they're onto something here at Tottenham.
Owen, Gary Neville was saying on Sky Sports commentary towards the end of the match it was the best atmosphere he had been part of all season long. Was it consistently unbelievable throughout the entire match? Was there any dip in atmosphere? Because I always feel when there's a goal scored right at the start of the second half, a lot of people are still away. So when Son scored, was there still an equally huge reaction to the 2 Harry Kane goals in the first half?
Just about, because they stopped serving at the bars as soon as the teams came back out, I presume, because I was out there trying to just get a cup of coffee and was like, okay, I'm not going to get served here. It was just shortly. It was just shortly after everybody got out. It was like Son had scored, so it did seem like the place was full again. So that's a good move, and I know most stadiums do that nowadays anyway. When the game is on, you can't actually get a pint, so that definitely helps it. But yeah, no, I didn't know that Gary Neville said it, and it's interesting that he did say it, because I think the Tottenham fans knew they had a significant part to play last night in intimidating Arsenal, a young Arsenal team, the youngest team in the league, who clearly worked. They got inside their heads and they completely underperformed last night, even allowing for 10 men. And yeah, it was a constant drumbeat of we love Spurs and we hate Arsenal around the whole ground. And I actually think the early goal helps in that regard, the penalty. I think everybody is in party mode at that point, and it kind of helps. And of course, the Arsenal fans, a significant chunk of them left early, but most of the Spurs fans hung around, it seemed anyway, till well after the full-time whistle.
Speaking of penalty, Mikel Arteta afterwards, with Jeff Streets and Sky Sports, was absolutely raging. He went full Pep Guardiola, went, I'm very proud of my players. If they play like this, they'll have no problem against Newcastle. But more to the point, he was saying that if he says anything at all, he's going to be suspended for 6 months. But I don't know about you from your stadium perspective, but as a TV viewer, stonewall penalty. What did you think first time around seeing it?
I didn't think it was a penalty first time I saw it, and then when I saw the replay, I thought, yeah, it is a penalty. And without trotting out the cliche about a referee, it would have just been interesting if he hadn't given it, would VAR have overturned it, and I don't think it would have done. So I don't think it was a stonewall at all. But I think that once you give it, VAR is not going to overturn it. So maybe that is the hometown decision that you do get in a place like that, and I think that it was a foul. It was a foul. I don't think Mikel Arteta can be complaining about the fact that it was a penalty or not. And I can understand why he's gone siege mentality.
Yeah.
What other option does he have after that? It was chastening, and they've lost a couple of players, and their squad is already extremely thin. You
can't start moaning about the referee now with Newcastle and Everton to come, and he suddenly look, Robbie Keane was making a good point last night that in the dressing room he's going to be going off, he's going to be giving it the big one, he's going to be saying ball and holding out of it, and that's all fair. And it's probably the point of the season he's at, with a couple of games to go. This thing could totally unravel. He probably has to come out and do an Arsene Wenger basically, isn't he?
Well, are you not just getting completely carried away with the scale of this, what Arsenal have done this season by calling it a complete unravelling? They lost to a better team last night. Tottenham are a better team than Arsenal. Chelsea are a better team than Arsenal. Manchester United are a better team than Arsenal. Arsenal somehow, going into last night, were a point behind Chelsea And I don't know what that is. Like, is that a complete fluke? Is it actually the fact that they've managed to get more than the sum of their parts out of every single game? It's because they haven't been playing European football all season. Something has happened this season that has allowed Arsenal to overachieve on that Premier League table in terms of their position. So, like an unravelling, is that? Are we really going to put this down as an unravelling?
Owen, you're
Like,
hearing it.
so.
You're hearing it away. Like, have some confidence in your own boys. They're a point ahead of Spurs. They're a 1 point better off team than Spurs. So last night was a massive underperformance. It was a huge underperformance.
I'm not hearing anything away. I'm saying that's my exact point. I'm saying that this is like
overachieving.
This has been a very, very strong. Oh, come on!
Did you just say Manchester United are a better team than Arsenal?
You look, and I'm talking about on paper. If you look at those squads on paper at the start of the season, and you're telling me that Arsenal would have finished ahead of Manchester United, you would have been off your rocker.
That is totally fair. The evidence
for Chelsea.
That is totally fair. But the evidence, what we've seen, is that Manchester United are better than very few other teams in the league. And like, look, the point is also fair in terms of like maybe they're ahead of their trajectory, and maybe it speaks more to the mediocrity of the teams, let's say, beneath Chelsea, because it's a bit of a bun fight for, if anybody of any quality to put their hand up, then they would have taken fourth. That's totally fair. But I will say that Arsenal have obviously got an awful lot of credit for, people aren't really, now look, I say it in the context of what happened last night, but people aren't really talking about the lily-livered mentality of Arsenal anymore. Now look, again, last night might have been the biggest counterpoint that he could possibly have, but that he is turning the ship, he's turning the tide. There's a lot of young quality players there at the club now, in a way that you add a few more, a sprinkling of quality there, and suddenly you have a team. They're definitely not competing for the 20 plus points for the cities in Liverpool, but like a little sprinkling, surely, Owen, they're not that far off competing for third.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, what's your kind of summation on Arsenal then? Is it that they are in the rarefied air of being one of the top teams in the league outside of the top two, or is it that they are lily-livered and are punching above their weight? Like, what's your summation?
I buy the Arteta has changed it, and there are real signs of progression there. Look at, and sure, we've been discussing that for the last number of months. Last night I think is a real sideswipe in terms of that overall plan. It'll be one that people forget about if they can get the job done against Newcastle and Everton, but you would be concerned on the basis of what you saw last night. What am I saying? I'm saying that I think they're not far off being the third best team in the Premier League.
I think if you can afford to leave out a player as talented as Emile Smith-Rowe in a North London derby, you have a pretty good team. Now, I do fear for Arsenal defensively in the next game, because by my reckoning they're going to play Cedric right back, Tavares will come in left back, and then Tomiyasu will have to play centre half with a not match fit Ben White. That's ropey, and Newcastle last day of the season might want to have a nice wave off to the fans for a fantastic second half to the campaign under Eddie Howe. If we did the Everton game, it'd be more worrying for me.
Yeah.
Well, like, Everton could be home and hosed by the final day of the season, right? So, like, that's what Arsenal need to hope for, that fixtures go their way this weekend, and that Everton are home, and they're in the Premier League next season. Arsenal are at home in that final game, and Everton have been terrible on the road, I would say. So I think Monday night, I think Spurs, if they had to pick one of the horses to bet on, they'd be picking the Newcastle horse rather than the Everton one at this point, be my guess, because I think they've got more of a chance of beating Arsenal, and especially considering the wound will still be a little bit fresh. Like, I know Conte was complaining afterwards that Spurs had to play on Sunday at 12 o'clock and Arsenal can wait until Monday night. That might be significant, that Arsenal can wait until Monday night to just have that extra day just to get over it. But just to go back to what you said there, Colm, I think the Emile Smith-Rowe thing, you're right. I mean, having a player of that quality on the bench should suggest squad depth, but it's a complete exception. Like, you can't use Emile Smith-Rowe and say, there is a good sub on the bench, therefore they have squad depth. It is literally the only area where they have a substitute who is as good as
Ben White on the bench last night.
That's the definition of squad depth, if you want to be technical about it.
Fit.
I know, it's a joke. It's a joke, Owen. It's a joke.
I mean, so next man up after Emile Smith-Rowe is Nicola Pepe, who has been not one of the worst signings of all time by Arsenal. That would be too strong, but a bit of a waste of money. They do not have squad depth. That's the one thing. Like, this is such high stakes for Arsenal compared to Tottenham, that Tottenham will, like, if you're starting from scratch again, from next season with these two same squads, of course Tottenham should be finishing ahead of Arsenal. The only way Arsenal finish ahead of Tottenham next season, the only way Arsenal really give themselves a good advantage of finishing ahead of Tottenham next season is by being in that fourth spot and Tottenham not being in there. And if they're going for the same sort of players, that Arsenal are grabbing them with the carrot of Champions League football. That's why this is so important for Arsenal. I actually think Spurs can get away with finishing fifth, and if they keep Conte, they will be in with a good shot of finishing top four next season and going on a good run in the Europa League.
I think the likes of Harry Kane are frantic these last two games because we need the Champions League to keep this man in charge. Because I think Antonio Conte, he's renting and he's looking to buy. He wants something else. He has that PSG job lined up. He likes working with the biggest players. I don't think Conte at this stage in his career, considering all he's achieved, has any interest in the Europa League.
Well, you saw Jose Mourinho crying about the Conference League the other week.
Yeah, but that Jose loves his CV and his Wikipedia to keep on scrolling. Like, the more you can scroll on Mourinho's CV, the happier he is. But with Conte, he wants big time. He's in it for the big time, baby. Whereas Arteta,
there's no question
you
that
can
if
work.
they don't,
So Arsenal don't have European football this year, so Europa League next year.
You're not saying
pretty
if
good progress.
Spurs
You're after Champions League.
You're not saying Conte leaves on the basis of not making the Champions League.
I don't think he's 100% committed to Spurs, but he's a fantastic manager, and the players are reacting to him. That would be my vision of it from the outside. Now, maybe he's never been more committed to a job, but I get the impression with him. You know, it was only a couple of months ago after the Burnley defeat to Turf Moor, he was like, I can't get anything out of these players. Which he literally said, was like, maybe I should just go. Maybe I should just leave. He's 2 results away from doing that again.
MJ Maloney in touch here on YouTube. Nobody expected Arsenal to even finish in the top 6. For them to be fourth with 2 games to go, Arteta would have taken that all season long. A bit of perspective, please, he says. And more comments here from RD. Arsenal shot themselves in the foot getting rid of Aubameyang and not bringing in a striker. And also saying that Spurs' last 2 games are favourable, and like on the face of it, absolutely. But that would be. We will see what happens, obviously, over the next one. The manager's conversation was a kind of an interesting one. I was looking at Arteta last night. I think it was after the penalty decision, and instead of ranting and raving, he was straight over to one of his assistant coaches, and he was like knee deep in a conversation about how are we going to respond to this tactically. And I thought, wow, well, that's impressive. So that's the way he was all night, right?
I was just about to say that's interesting because every time I look down, it was Arteta in the fourth official's ear constantly. Now, Conte does it a lot, but Mikel Arteta is on a level above. And it does feel that it's something that we've got a really good sense of on television all season long. But when you're there and you can actually see it happen, it's quite extraordinary. Like, it did seem that there was a bit of a conflab after the sending off about whether or not they'd bring on Ben White. I presume that's what they were talking about, and that was obviously the big decision. And again, this is all about perspective and your perspective on Arsenal. Was it a sense of throwing in the towel, or was it a sense of shrewd move, Mikel Arteta? I kind of felt at the time it was throwing in the towel. I'm not going to lie, because maybe there was kind of like a bit of a hangover from what happened against Leeds last week, where Arsenal were a man up and 2 goals up and at home, and they still almost conspired to collapse because there was a weird goal they conceded. I thought if Arsenal could get 1 goal, Spurs could have felt a little bit shaky last night, so I thought they should have gone for it. But then kind of when the coldness of this Friday morning, you're like, okay, having a fully fit Ben White for Newcastle on Monday is more important. And that's probably what it came down to. And if they win and Ben White starts, and like, I guess after that point, Gabriel gets injured, so it's even more important to have Ben White back there. I think that it could prove to be a shrewd move, but I'm sure hindsight will judge him cruelly one way or the other.
You know what struck me was the extent of the deliberation and conversation about what to do after Rob Holding was sent off. It was so intense between all the coaches, but yeah, it felt to me at the time watching he's given up in this match. He's going to put all his eggs in the Newcastle and Everton baskets, because he's a man down, he's a goal down. It did look to me like that, and Jamie Redknapp was very adamant that was the case at half time as well. And I'd love to know, did you get a sense afterwards from Arsenal fans that that's what they felt on?
This is. Do you remember the Millennium Stadium a few months ago? Where
what was the question?
What's happening?
Talk to the people there, on.
No. I actually didn't hear your question, Colm.
What
Sorry.
The interesting thing for me about the Ben White situation last night was, like, they obviously you presume that they had a conversation in advance, right, about like, here are the scenarios in which Eoin is after having to turn his machine off. I think he's been sort of Millennium Stadium revisited, the Principality Stadium revisited there.
I think
in that the security guards come over and gone, listen, pal, what are you doing here? Live broadcasting? Are you kidding me?
Like,
get out of here.
We've all had our fun.
Well, are fun. You've been out here
Come on.
bagging.
You've been here since 4 a.m. son.
The Ben White one, and we leave it in this because Owen's been talking to some of the fans that we want to hear from as well after the stadium, after the match last night around the stadium. Many of whom left early, and Owen had to leave himself a bit early to get out ahead of them. The Ben White situation. The only thing that I thought was slightly weird about it. Why was it a conversation? Either you've decided he's fit enough to be in the squad and he's on the bench and he's getting the energy drinks in and he might come in, but the weirdness of that was that then after the game, when Arteta's asked about it, he was like, no, it was never a situation that we would bring Ben White on. That was just not true.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was an absolute last case scenario. Like, I don't actually subscribe to the opinion that, if you're on the bench, you're fit enough to play. I think if you're on the bench, you're probably not fit enough to play if you're an important player. So it's a total emergency situation. But he thought it was too early.
Was that not an emergency situation then last night?
Well, I think they needed the quality of Ben White in, but the problem was the time of the match. I think if that had happened maybe 20 minutes into the second half,
the only
no doubt
counterpoint to
about
that
it.
is he said Ben White was not playing tonight. It was not the right thing to do.
But they did the same with Calvin Phillips at Leeds. Jesse March put him on the bench a good few times before he had any real intention of playing him. He admitted that. They played away to Wolves on Friday Night Football. Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville asked him about.
Because he was getting ready to come on, Ben White.
He was, but I think Arteta decided. I think that's where the deliberation was coming from. The coaches, I feel, were saying to Arteta, we need to bring him on, and he was thinking, no, it's too early for him to come on. Because if you go to a scenario where White either gets sent off or injured, then they really are screwed against Newcastle on Monday night. And think about it too. Arsenal are in the driving seat here. They are a point ahead, despite last night's performance. It's totally in their control, and they have every capability of beating Newcastle and everything.
Who would you rather be, Tottenham or
Spurs? Because of their last two games, and I wouldn't trust Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Owen, are you back?
Yeah, all good.
Do you want to tell us what happened?
Just two gentlemen coming along, having a coffee, having a smoke. Friday morning, the weekend is here.
President, yeah, both support Arsenal. You get me?
You support Arsenal?
Yeah, both of us. Yeah, basically we're heartbroken about President. Yeah, because all our situation, being homeless and that. Yeah, we was hoping that can cheer us up, to have us to have a good day.
Depending on Arsenal to cheer you up, probably not the most dependable exercise, unfortunately.
If Arsenal get good result, we'll be cheered up. You get me? I get motivated. You get me? But right now, man's down. You get me? Yeah, but life goes on, innit? You get me?
A bit longer to be happy,
Yeah, that's not the end of it. You get me? Because we see ahead on point. You get me? Yeah.
Life goes on is the message from North London this morning. I wish all Arsenal fans had that level of perspective. I'm getting it eventually. As I said, the cold mist of Friday morning do come along. You're like, you know what? Things aren't that bad. And I disagree with you, Colm. I would rather be in Arsenal's position, 1 point ahead. As Alex Ferguson always says, points on the board.
And that will motivate us, that defeat. You get me? Yeah. Maybe if we had won here, would have been complacent.
That's Owen's subconscious talking there.
And he has had an interesting little time with fans on, haven't you? You had to get out of the stadium a little bit early last night to get ahead of the posse, get out amongst the fans. It was a fraud situation, a bit like it is this morning.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I guess what you'll see at the end of this piece is that everybody who saw me with the red microphone thought I was with Arsenal Fan TV, which kind of created a few moments of confusion and maybe some funny moments. But genuinely, there does seem to be a real distaste amongst the Arsenal fans, some Arsenal fans, for AFTV. And there was one guy who approached me pretty much straight after the game and was like, F off with your silly little camera, you effing see you next Tuesday. And I was like, wow, okay, this is great. A great decision to be in amongst the Arsenal fans in the aftermath of this. So there's a lot of people who weren't happy whatsoever to see the mic last night. But other than that, I think Spurs fans, who were the majority, of course, were pretty delighted with the results.
Yeah. All right, we'll take that video now. On with the fans after the match.
So it's finished. Spurs 3, Arsenal 0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I have a mic that has a red cover on it, therefore everybody thinks I'm working with Arsenal Fan TV. Nevertheless, here is what the Arsenal fans and, of course, the Spurs fans thought after that win for Tottenham.
Incredible. Fantastic.
Ecstatic. It's amazing. Incredible. Great performance.
Amazing. Magic time. Magic.
Absolutely elated. It's just a brilliant game. We've got to keep this manager, Conte, because he is different fish to Pochettino.
I got sweets because I got a sweet tooth, sugar addiction. I got a program, lovely program. My tea towels are all old and manky, so sorry Mum, I'm going to throw out your old tea towels. Got some new ones. And of course, what Spurs fans' home is complete without a fridge magnet.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's probably the best I've been to this season.
Yeah?
Yeah, toss up, Colm, you Spurs.
That's not going to do.
This is your Jadu. This is your Jadu.
That's Nathan Murphy. Pretty good result, to say the least.
Electric, Owen. Really, really electric. It was such a great game. Really, really enjoyed it.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, because we beat Arsenal and we're a better team than Arsenal.
Is this the best result Spurs have had in a long time?
I've no idea, but I'm going to say yes.
If you want to watch Arsenal, they're hit and miss. We are basically the generic Irish people's team, as in Robbie Keane.
It feels like there's like a new wave of Spurs energy at the moment.
I'd agree with you, Owen. I really would. Yeah, just 6 points, as you overheard, yeah.
Arsenal had Liam Brady, but we've now got Robbie Keane, who's one of our people.
Yeah. What a player.
What a player. Absolutely. Top goal scorer for Ireland as well. Let's not forget.
And Arsenal were bad, weren't they?
Terrible. Really terrible. One of their worst performances in a while. But again, the atmosphere was really electric.
It was tough. First 30 minutes, I thought, oh, we're in trouble here. But do you know what? He's missed one game all season, and I thought this was his game. He's seen Everton 5-0, and you think to yourself, oh, we won 5-0 getting to Everton. And today, Owen, you deserve that.
Did you enjoy that game today?
Yeah, I love the game. We played really well.
Best experience of your life?
Yeah, one of the best experiences of my life. Because the last time we beat Arsenal, I think, was 8 years ago at home. So, yeah, we did really well, I think.
Yeah, there's still hope, of course. Newcastle, Everton. Talk to me then.
You're going to win?
Yeah, against Newcastle, we have to win. Everton, tricky.
What do you make of tonight's performance?
Poor. Nketiah, poor. Who else? Rob Holding, poor. You should have played Ben White. Who else? Martinelli should have been up front.
Sorry, you don't have a clue what he's saying. He's a gooner and he's a bad loser. That's all I've got to say, all right?
We're shite, simple as that. We are shit. But we're still going to get top 4 anyway, so...
What was the biggest issue tonight, do you think?
The red card, I thought that was absolutely shit. Other than that, I think the first half was quite slow. We didn't really deserve anything, to be honest.
Tom Ash, Minute, I'm a Spurs supporter.
And yourself?
JJ Walsh from Nice, Arsenal till I die.
How do you manage to put up with him after that sort of result?
Today, deeply disappointing, right? In fact, a humiliation. Nothing short of a humiliation. I don't want to see that happen again. They don't deserve Champions League. They really don't deserve it.
I was hoping we had a close game. There'd be like 3-2, 2-1, something like that. So 3-0 was great. We enjoyed it, but I do feel sorry for Tom.
So you've got any night at Turner's Cross, and then you've got a North London derby just below it. So that's all I got to say.
As an Arsenal fan, you never want to feel like somebody feels sorry for you.
Exactly.
But you know what? That's kind of what we feel these days, you know? It's increasingly a familiar...
We're both Kildare men, Owen.
Honestly, it is.
We're both Kildare men, so we're used to disappointment, in fairness. And
we are.
Come on, the under-20s on Saturday against Tyrone.
Unbelievable, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it. I expected maybe like a 2-1 win, but to get the 3-0 was quality, like.
What do you think of the atmosphere in there?
Oh, brilliant. I lost my voice. I wasn't able to scream.
Basically, Arsenal have turned up and they've had their pants pulled down. And what? Every time we beat Arsenal under Pochettino, it's always like one goal. We're beating 1-0 or 2-1. I always say to mate, I really want to stick 3 or 4 past Arsenal. Well, tonight, mate, we put 3 past them.
Up the Spurs!
Mikel Arteta, you are a fake Zara top man, fake Guardiola, mate, and you will get absolutely bodied next season. And listen, Conte's still here, so good luck, fella. F off.
But yeah, the atmosphere was good, was this?
Arsenal get battered everywhere they go! Everywhere they go! 1, 2, 3, 4! Arsenal get battered everywhere they go! Arsenal get battered everywhere they go! Everywhere they go!
Arsenal Fan TV! Suck on that.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right, it's 8 o'clock. You're watching OTB AM. You heard just before the ads there, Eoin in conversation with the Arsenal Tottenham fans last night. We're back to Eoin for some of his reaction to that as well in just a couple moments' time. You are watching OTB AM, and we've lots coming for you between now and 10 this morning. Brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And here's what's coming up on the show for you this morning. We are going to get stuck into our quick picks. Bit more reaction from Eoin in the game last night in a couple of moments, but after that, the quick picks. We're going to have Will and myself. Is Eoin going to be? Is that it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Triple threat.
Triple threat. And sports pages 25 to 9 this morning. Let you know what's happening across the back pages this morning. Ronan Jones is from Whoop, and he'll be joining us just before 9 o'clock this morning in studio, and he's going to talk about how to get the best out of this thing. And basically, we're all doing a triathlon, or pieces of a triathlon, in about a month's time, and some of us are doing a little bit more training than others. And Ronan will be giving us the best advice about how to best use the wearable. You were going to say something there.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to finish the nice coming up there, and I want to ask you a question.
Alan Quinlan is going to be with us after that, and needless to say, plenty to talk to him about the Munster developments, obviously, with the new coach there. Leinster obviously in action this weekend. The November internationals announced, and also the nominations for the Players of the Year, and we'll get his thoughts on all of that. And by the way, if you have any questions for Quinny, he'll be live with us a bit later on, so questions, comments, whatever it is you're having, wherever province you're at, do fire them into us, and then after that we have
John Giles and Eddie Gray special from last night.
I heard some of that. It was very
Brilliant
good,
chat.
very good.
No, what I wanted to ask you there, how are you getting on with the training? Genuinely.
I haven't done it. Jerry Gilroy was on the show during the week, and obviously, as he tends to do, he deflects attention away from his own shortcomings in relation to the preparation for the triathlon, and he foists them upon me and my lack of ability athletically, which is plain and obvious to see. But I have not, it was a bit of fake news about it, because I have not, in fact, actually started training at all. I've been in the pool several times, so I'm just doing the swim leg of the Tri-Thai at the start of June, and I've been in the pool. I'm in the pool about twice a week, every week. I'm just not actually doing any training.
Is this because of your knee problem?
No, the swimming will be very good for that.
Laziness.
Very good for that. No, I got a bit of acupuncture on my knee during the week, actually. Have you ever had acupuncture?
Had it on my back, yeah. I don't
Have
like
you,
it.
yeah?
Yeah, don't like it now.
I got it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and it was really unintrusive. It was actually, I didn't find a huge benefit out of it, but it didn't feel, there was no negative side to it. So I thought, let's go again. And he went, all right. And he doubled down and went from 2 needles to 7 needles. And I did feel a little bit of that, I have to say.
Speaking of needles, have you had dry needle treatment ever?
I haven't, but I've heard
that's
I'm not up for that.
That's an experience and a half.
Eoin, an experience and a half around the ground pre and post last night. We got a bit of a flavour of it there before the ads.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant atmosphere around before the game as well. Like the high road here outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is just a hive of activity. There is it's interesting. Like what I found interesting, like there's a lot of different things, but like I was chatting to certain people before the game, maybe the result changed this tone considerably, but there was like a real air of caution about, not about trouble, but kind of like people warning you about where to go, where not to go, to look after yourself, mind yourself, and just staying safe and stuff before the game. And even this kind of sense of jeopardy around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium area, like don't be walking around on your own at night, especially on Derby night and all that sort of stuff, which I'm not sure that age materialised later after I'd left the place. But before the game, it did seem like that everything was kind of in good spirits. Like there was a couple of Arsenal fans who kind of walked in their Arsenal colours, and they did get abused, but it wasn't overly, it was friendly abuse. And it was just kind of interesting to kind of how the conversations around that would differ from the reality. Maybe if Tottenham had lost and there was a lot of anger on the streets, things would have been very different. But it was kind of like a messy sort of, but largely happy night after the game, which is not too different to many other sporting events. You wouldn't really know it was a North London derby, except for the fact that there was just lots of people around.
The Son stuff was really interesting last night, particularly the aftermath where he obviously storms off the pitch. I don't know if you picked up on that at the time, but he gets substituted off. He storms off, gave an interview last week, said, I'm not too worried about the golden boot. And the evidence of that obviously is he walks off and isn't happy and wants to stay on and wants to score goals. He is basically the modern day Dennis Irwin, in that everybody talks about him all the time and says he doesn't get enough credit. They spend so much time talking about Son getting enough credit. Class player, I presume. Was there anything you noticed, picked up last night that we wouldn't have seen on the TV from either himself or that other lad?
But that's weird. Like somebody did say to me after the game that Son is the most underrated player in the Premier League.
It's the biggest cliche going. It's like Colm constantly on about Dennis Irwin being the most being so underrated, even though everybody talks about him all the time.
He's never been taken off freeze. Never.
I think is that an Irish thing though, the Dennis Irwin thing?
No, he was just unbelievable at free kicks. Yeah. David Beckham, it was all a marketing strategy for David Beckham, but for Irwin, his precision was incredible. I'd love to see the stats on Irwin's free kicks versus Beckham's. I love Beckham, by the way. Just
David Beckham, the most famous man in the world, of course.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Who do you think is the most recognisable?
Come on, Son.
Yeah, Son is absolutely exceptional. It's just become a whole different beast, that attack, and that attack without the ball has become a different beast as well since they've added Kulusevski to the mix. It's they're very, very hard to play out of the back against, and I think that the threat that he brings on the right hand side as well now is just a completely different dimension to that Spurs team. I'm sure Conte would only be delighted to see Heung-min Son still thirsty for goals at the end of the season and still really, really eager to add to his tally. That's going to be a contributing factor to them getting 6 points at the end of the season as well. He's sensational, Adrian. I don't necessarily think that anybody is unaware of the talents that this guy possesses. Like, he is a statistical beast, and he's also a phenomenal player to watch live. So he kind of ticks both boxes, like the eye test as well as the stats. Like, there's no argument you can make that Heung-min Son isn't one of the top players in the Premier League. I'm not sure if that narrative has ever been out there. And I think that just plays into the idea that this Tottenham team is extremely strong. And Chelsea would probably bite your hand off for Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. And we were tipping them wrongly, as it turned out, at the start of the season to go and win the Premier League. That is the strength that they have in attack. Erling Haaland has now gone to Manchester City. It looks like Harry Kane will probably be spending a bit more time at Tottenham Hotspur. It could be a one-club man as things turn out. So I think in the attacking department, it's really really encouraging.
He has to knuckle down now that Erling is there. Unless, is there a chance he goes United way?
Maybe in the future. I don't think this summer. I think that would be unwise because we still don't know how the Ten Hag thing will play out. Who knows though? He was obviously very, very keen. I guess we have to ask his brother what he's thinking and what he's got planned, what he's got masterminded for the future of Harry Kane.
Plenty of comments coming in. Somebody here you obviously was speaking to last night, Bobby Dwyer, saying he's fuming not to have made the cut.
He is in the cut for another piece that we have earlier.
In the mix.
So there's a package on the build up to the game, the afternoon, the daytime around Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which I put together, which we'll be playing later on in the show. Bobby Dwyer is very much in that, and I think anybody who doesn't make the cut in a post-match box pop should be thankful. To be honest,
I enjoyed the dad in the video saying to his kid, "Best night of your best experience of your life, wasn't it?" The kid is like, "Yeah, no, it was good. It was good, best experience." And then the other guy saying that, Robbie Keane, Tottenham is every generic Irish person's dream.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Did you go for a pint of the Billy Nick? Moondust is wondering.
No, I did not. You guys seem to have some sort of notion that I actually go drinking when I'm doing these things. I would have loved to. Don't get me wrong. I'd have absolutely loved to, but no, I did not.
So finally, before we let you off, and you've been chatting away to Ainsley Harriott as well. Anybody keen-eyed viewers would have seen him up on social media yesterday. Kind of predicting that, it didn't really matter if they get beaten, which I don't know if in hindsight now it seems like maybe not the smartest thing in the world. But what were you doing chatting to Ainsley Harriott?
Oh, Adrian Barry taking down Ainsley Harriott's football takes. This is the online beef that we all knew we wanted. He's a massive Arsenal fan, Ainsley Harriott. I wanted to chat to somebody who maybe was off the beaten path a little bit in terms of their footballing life. Himself and Gordon Ramsay did a very good preview of the 2002 FA Cup final, which is on Sky Sports Retro, where they made like a lot of food analogies and determined who was actually going to win on the day. I just love Ainsley Harriott, and I think that he was like an interesting guy to chat to. We got him to review football foods from the Footy Scrans account as well when we chatted yesterday. He was giving a talk at a catering college down in Victoria. I went down to the leafy part of London yesterday, which was nice. Felt a little bit out of my depth down there, but he was very welcoming and very good with his time. So I'm sure we're going to bring you a substantial amount of that before we're out this morning.
Can I just ask you before we let you away, do you feel that last night, just to summarise the conversation we touched on earlier on, how much of a step back is it for Arsenal, like almost regardless of, because it's the sort of thing obviously that lingers in the mind now, like a thumping at Tottenham, best atmosphere of the season, the place is hopping, injuries for Arsenal, like no matter almost what happens from here, this is one that's going to live a little bit in the memory. How much of a setback is it for Arteta and is it for Arsenal outside, if you can separate it from the results of the next couple of games?
I don't know. Like, it felt that there was a number of these moments early in the season, well, not a number, like the Crystal Palace, the second Crystal Palace game in particular was one of those where you thought, okay, this whole thing is unravelled in pretty brutal fashion. And as I say, they kind of bounced back with a couple of good wins against better teams, actually, teams higher up the table, United and Chelsea, obviously. So I'm not convinced that it is the death knell on Arsenal's Champions League hopes. And it's weird that you would even need to say that, because they have the table position on Tottenham. It is very much in their hands. And I don't know, like, if you want to like read way too much into managers' comments, Mikel Arteta saying he'd get suspended for 6 months because he thought it wasn't a penalty to Tottenham last night, and it was a penalty to Tottenham last night, shows this pig-headed ignorance that Mikel Arteta has. That's the sort of pig-headed ignorance you're looking for in these last couple of games, to say, you know what, getting smashed by your most hated rival doesn't actually matter. Of course it matters. It's Tottenham. You don't want to get smashed by Tottenham, but maybe the fact that Mikel Arteta will be able to, twist this into saying, it actually doesn't matter, could be the very thing that gets him into the top four. And surely you guys, as people who don't have a dog in this fight, you can appreciate how funny it would be to see Tottenham not finish in the top four after beating Arsenal and after smashing Arsenal last night. It would be funny if they finished below Arsenal in the table, wouldn't it? No?
So, in summary, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, better atmosphere than the Emirates?
Well, last night, yeah.
But generally,
obviously, I haven't been to a North London derby at the Emirates. The Emirates atmosphere has got better compared to what it used to be. But this stadium is absolutely brilliant atmosphere-wise. Let me just compare it with North London derby at the Emirates, and I'll get back to you. But every game, that was obviously better than any game I've been to at the Emirates atmosphere-wise, of course, because I haven't been to a derby.
And how does it compare to Parky Ring? The burning question of the morning.
Oh, that's different gravy altogether. Parky Ring, just glorious, to be honest, and the sort of the ability to stretch your body by being on your tiptoes to be able to see at the back of the stand, the back of the terrace. That's something you miss in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which Parky Rin delivers. I miss Parky Rin.
Dave Cos on YouTube says, here we go again. United are a better team than Arsenal. Jesus wept. Far be it from the viewers of this show to misrepresent what was actually said, which I think, to be fair, was not actually a point on.
It was the whole squad point and who the players that they actually have on paper. Maybe there's a case to be made that they don't, but I firmly would have believed at the start of the season that Manchester United were in a different category altogether to Arsenal.
Yeah.
So, that's what that was based on.
Arteta went full Davy Fitz, by the way, with those comments, didn't he? It was like, I'm not going to comment about that thing. I'm going to get a suspension. I wasn't sure, actually, did he say 6 months? I think maybe it might have been 6 matches, I'm not sure. But it was, I'm not going to say anything. If I say anything, and then he sort of said something, it was
6 months.
Classic Davy Fitz.
To deliver the point. Yeah, 6 games is random.
What was he going to say that was, and don't... it's a rhetorical question. What was he going to say that was going to get him a suspension for 6? That would have been wild.
I don't even think it was going to be that bad.
Wouldn't it? 6 months. Nobody gets banned for 6 months for saying something.
What do you think he was at least pretending to be annoyed about? Which specific incident?
Well,
was it the sending off or the penalty?
What do you think, Owen?
Well, no, I think it was around Heung-min Son and Rob Holding in a grapple on the ground, and Heung-min Son brings back the elbow a little bit to connect at the head of
it was to
Rob
get off
Holding on the ground.
They were saying in commentary they were debating that Holding's second yellow was a straight red.
They could have been, yeah.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, we'll have more from you later on. Good man.
Cheers.
Thanks, Owen. Fair play. Nearly 8:15. It's Friday morning. As you can tell, we're getting a good sense from Owen of the game last night. What a game it was at the very impressive, as Owen's been telling us, Tottenham Stadium, and the fans as well. We'll have more from them later on. And also more from Ainsley Harriott, which is what you're here for this morning, let's face it. We're also going to be a little bit later on talking about the quick picks that's coming up very shortly. So that is next. In fact, we're going to mark a card for the weekend of what's going on. Look at the running order, Adrian, is what Colm's smile is telling you there. But before that, here's a snippet. John Giles, Eddie Gray, talking to Nathan last night. It was brilliant.
Thing he wanted more than anything else was an FA Cup. Can you put into context for people who don't remember that time, in compared to leagues, European Cups, just how big an occasion an FA Cup final was?
Well, the FA Cup final was like Grand National Day in the racing. It was once a year. It was on the television from 11 o'clock in the morning, going through the games. It was just like a national day. And the history of it was fantastic. And I think most players, to be honest, would rather win the Cup than the league. And certainly a lot of their own supporters would. Because the league could be won, had to be won over 42 matches, as we know. But Cup Final Day was Cup Final Day, and it was a glamour day. It was huge. They had 100,000 at Wembley, and there wasn't much football on television in the early days, Nathan. So it was a big treat for people as well. But everything stopped. It was a national day, and at that time in 1972, when we played there, that's what it was, and that's why it was so big. Like if you talk to football people, well, Eddie's great on football and on the history of it. If you ask people who won the league in 1971 or 2 or before, most people wouldn't know. But most people who follow football would know who won the cup in 69, 70, 71, 72 and before. It was National Day, and it was a glamour day, Nathan.
That was a special FA Cup final as well, Eddie. It was the centenary FA Cup final. The Queen was in attendance. John talks there about the glamour. As a club and as a group, was it treated differently in terms of how you would prepare for the game? Would you get to stay in a better hotel the night before the match? Were the special cup suits? Were there more family members brought?
I mean, it was a one-off game then, the cup final. As John says, it was the most important single game in the whole calendar. And it was a game that everybody was looking forward to. And I'll never forget, like when you go to Wembley, I went to Wembley in those days, you're driving up Wembley Way and you see the Twin Towers. It was a great feeling of excitement. And you're looking forward to it so much. And thank goodness, after disappointments we had in a few cup finals, the club, we eventually won it when we beat the Arsenal. And it was a great day for everybody connected with the football club.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
It's 17 minutes past 8. It's OTB AM. It is, of course, Quick Picks. Owen is still with us. Will, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you getting on?
Flying, and thanks. Owen is still, for anybody who's watching this on demand after the show, Owen is outside the very impressive Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we're making as many comparisons as we can with his trip to Porky Rin last week, and we'll try and shoehorn more of that in as we work through it here. We don't have an update on the table. I know that I got a couple of the results wrong last week, so we shall see. We shall see how we develop on that. I'm assured, because I know the viewers want it, we are going to have a table in whatever shape or form that's going to be when we join you next week. But let's get straight into it, and we're going to kick off here, I think, with the football, and I think with Monaghan Derry. Let's get a look at how everybody's going here. So, for this one, it's Monaghan across the board, and to be absolutely fair to her, she's sticking to her word of yesterday's show, and Aisling is the one exception to the rule, and she's going with Derry. So, but it's Monaghan across the board after that from Eoin and Will and myself and Tommy. What are your Derry will continue what they set off on is your basic argument here, is it?
Jeez, thanks for making an argument up for me there, Adrian. I had to be consistent on this. We joked about it last week. I said if I flip the opinion on this and go for Derry to beat Monaghan, some smartass in the comments is going to turn around and go, well, he was thinking it was going to be a Donegal against Monaghan Ulster final, and very quickly be pointed out that I changed my mind. This is bloody tricky to call because Derry obviously completed a complete demolition job on Tyrone, and the question mark is how off it were Tyrone, and I take the point that they were way off it on the day. But Derry were very impressive. They were impressive throughout the National Football League. I was actually chatting to the Offaly football captain Johnny Maloney yesterday, and he was pointing out that Derry were by far the best team they had played in Division 2, and that really had just gone south on the game that they played against Galway. But Derry really should have been in contention for Division 1 promotion for next season. And it's not like as if that game against Tyrone was just a flash in the pan. They've been really good all season. But this Monaghan team were very close to landing the Anglo-Celts last season. They pushed Tyrone all the way at Croke Park in an Ulster final, and I expect them to just go back to the final just about against Derry. This is a game where I can't really see more than 2 points between the sides, and I reckon it's going to be the Farney men who come out just on top.
Yeah, like, look, it is hard, and feel free to change your mind, Will. I do think that as we work our way through the championship, we are absolutely... I overheard a parent telling their kid one day, years ago, saying, the kid was like, but you said this thing to me last week, and the parent was like, listen, I'm not obliged to be consistent, and it's a rule of thumb that I've worked off ever since. And I think it applies here, Eoin. I think that, like, if we see the body of evidence and stuff, like, the Derry thing is probably the biggest upside of the championship so far, and we're entitled to change our minds on the basis of it, but you're sticking with Monaghan.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest upset of the championship so far, especially given the magnitude of the win. I don't think anybody predicted them to win by that much. I'm interested that Tommy's actually gone for Monaghan here, given he was on the Derry bandwagon before the Tyrone match. But maybe that just speaks to his lack of confidence in Tyrone rather than his confidence in Derry. And we can't forget that Monaghan were outstanding in their last championship match as well. For me, that was going to be a little bit of a question mark for them this season, given the end of the league campaign required such an effort from them to survive, and there was such a high, obviously, that day when they relegated Dublin. I wondered how they carried that into this year's championship, and it turns out that they just picked up where they left off in the league. Obviously, this is a far bigger test than Down this weekend. This is their biggest test of the championship so far, obviously, and I wonder how much of that hurt that defeat to Tyrone last year will contribute to their effort this weekend and maybe into an Ulster final. I was a bit like Will as well. I would have definitely predicted a Monaghan Donegal Ulster final a few weeks ago. So consistency, the name of the game here.
And Donegal ultimately to win it, I think. Anyway, are we still sticking with that?
Not sure. I think that's a very. I think that regardless of what the consolation is going to be in the final, I think it'll be an excellent final and a very, very hard one to call. I'm not necessarily sold fully on Donegal, especially against Monaghan in a final. I'd be backing them against Derry in a final. Just to preview, I guess, the quick picks in a month's time.
My prediction is largely based on sort of being pig-headed from my initial Tyrone prediction when they were playing Derry a couple of weeks ago, and like there can be, and look, we're in the prediction of sort of looking into a crystal ball here, so this might look idiotic in a week's time, but there can be a knock-on impact of between Eoin outside the London Stadium and Hank. We're getting it all this morning. There can be a knock-on impact from teams who've pulled off a big result like that, and we've seen that umpteen times through the years. The most recent example obviously is Mayo against Tyrone themselves obviously last year, and then coming up short a bit in the final. And also Tyrone 2022 they're not Tyrone of last year. Like, I know we're talking about it as an upset, and I know I predicted Tyrone to beat Derry, so it's absolutely hindsight, but it wasn't the same. Like, we don't know actually how good that Derry win was, Will.
Yeah, I mean, that is the question mark. We'll probably learn a lot more by the end of play on Sunday afternoon to see where they actually were with that performance. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I take Miles's point as well on OTB last week about Tyrone, that maybe we'll learn more about them depending on who they get in the first round of the qualifiers to get a real sense of where they are, because there's no doubt that losing some of the panel depth, even if they weren't necessarily starters that left the panel earlier this year, can't have helped them. And then we looked at their league form and we kind of thought, yeah, they just about did enough at the end. They just about saved their own hide. And then they just couldn't come up to the performance level that we saw from Derry the last day. So that obviously factors a lot into where we try and gauge where Derry are at. I'm kind of with Eoin on this one. I think if Derry qualify, I would fancy Donegal in the final. If Monaghan were to qualify, I think Monaghan have got a really good chance of winning the Ulster Championship, albeit, like, you got to respect the consistency of Donegal. That's 12 years now, they've got to 10 Ulster finals. We always talk about how difficult it is to try and navigate your way through Ulster, especially if you have to go the long way and you've got a preliminary round and then working your way through, other effectively Division 1 teams across the board. For Donegal to be doing that year on year is an incredible achievement.
That will be a conversation for another day, and we will come back to it. That's Monaghan Derry to kick things off. Next up, we're into the Leinster semi-finals. Kildare, Westmeath to begin with. And we have, I'm happy to report, across the board, lads, all gone for Kildare.
Adrian.
Every single one of us. It's inevitable, Will, really what I'm saying here. This is
you
like
won't be welcome back in Athlone. Go on, why are you going for Kildare?
Well, they're the odds-on favourite to win the game. Like, I have spoken before. I was at the Westmeath game a couple of weeks ago. They were very good again for a period against and look, they were an average team on the day. I'm fed up sort of insulting people in this show, so I'm going to say on the day, Longford are better than they showed. Is that the cliche that we use in these instances? They were better than they were that day. But like, I think the way I would look at it, if Westmeath can play like they did for the from about the 15th minute to half time the last day and a little bit towards the end of the game at Cusack Park a couple of weeks ago, I think they, to be honest with you, on the basis of playing like that consistently, they could put it up to any team in Leinster, and I include the big dogs in it. Absolutely no question about it. But their ability to do that, the evidence of which I haven't seen much. But look, on the basis of that, Kildare are odds-on favourite, long odds on Westmeath, and we'll roll over and have our bellies tickled here, Will.
Well, I was sure you were going to go for Westmeath in this one, not just because of your heart, but also because during the league you were backing against Kildare in every single game that they played in Division 1, and you made plenty of friends in Kildare along the way as you were predicting against them every week. But yeah, I mean, look, based on where Kildare were at in the league compared to Westmeath, based on how Kildare went out against a Louth team who we were talking about had been so impressive in the first round, where they put 5 goals past Carlow, had been promoted up to Division 2 of the league. We were talking about that being a potential banana skin, and Kildare went out with a very professional performance in Tullamore and booked their place into the semi-finals. If Kildare hit their level, and they've been boosted by the fact that their 20s have been going so well this year too. It's a little bit unfortunate, I think, that game is on Carrigan Shannon on Saturday against Tyrone, and that the game didn't get played at Croke Park. I wonder if any of the players from the under-20s will be factored into the panel after Saturday, or if maybe that's a question mark for later down the road, because they've got some particularly good forwards in that under-20 team. I think Kildare, on the balance of it, should probably beat Westmeath, but I am slightly wary that Westmeath have run Kildare close in recent years when they've met in the championship, and I was very impressed with the way that Westmeath had played against Longford in that quarter-final in the last round. So I don't think this is a total gimme for Kildare, but yeah, you would expect the Lily Whites to advance.
Yeah, they're a far better team, Owen. They're in a different division, and Westmeath are just there to make up the numbers. Is that the lesson I should learn from you?
Well, you've stopped trolling Leinster counties now, so you're now trying to coax other people in to troll them for you. You just retired. You've hung up the jacket of being chief Leinster football troll, and he's decided to get us to do your dirty work for you. I'm not going to say anything bad about Kildare, considering I've tipped them, and same with Westmeath. I mean, I actually got accused of being too in love with Westmeath during an early iteration of the power rankings this season. The fact that it's on in Croke Park, there's been not complaints, but there's been some suggestion that maybe the game should be pulled out of Croke Park. Maybe that's more in keeping for the Meath versus Dublin match. But I'm excited to see how this Kildare team actually plays in Croke Park, and that forward unit in the wide spaces there. I think on Sunday, they should really be looking to rack up a score. Obviously, Westmeath will have something to say about that. But this Kildare team, I think if they're not thinking we can take down Dublin this year, they're not in the right headspace. I don't think they will beat Dublin, but I think they have to be thinking that they can do it. And they proved in the league that they were on level par with them, if not a little bit ahead of them in the springtime. So why not?
Yeah. Kildare's to lose on. They're all over that. I hear what you're saying. Dublin Meath is the next port of call here, the other Leinster game, and everybody, and I mean, you're surprised that I have gone for Kildare over Westmeath. Everybody has gone for Dublin here. Even, is that a typo? Did Tommy definitely go for Dublin? I'm surprised and shocked about that, and I would love to sort of satellite him in from wherever part of America he's in at the minute, but that ain't possible. So, Kieran Whelan making the point this morning in his column in the Irish Independent, urging caution, saying that the win over Wexford, a good sign, but not a reason to pick out your Jacks are back t-shirt. Well?
I don't know. I mean, I was watching the football pods earlier this week, and Tommy didn't offer a whole lot of resistance when Meath were effectively written off by both of his co-hosts. James Maloney said that Meath have absolutely no chance on Sunday, was incredibly dismissive of their chances against Dublin. Paddy Andrews tried to kind of talk Dublin down a little bit, and then he said, nah, Dublin should win very comfortably against Meath this weekend. I don't know. Are they back? I mean, obviously Con is back in the team. Against Wexford, it was just such a cakewalk, and they were just fisting points over for fun in that game in Wexford Park. They showed pretty much complete control. We saw Fenton pretty much back towards his best too. I think there was definite positive signs compared to what we saw earlier in the league against Dublin, and even in the end they went down swinging at the end of the National Football League at least. Meath, I saw them twice in the flesh during the National Football League. They probably got away with one a little bit in Tullamore with the late goal, which probably should have been called as a square ball. What was the other game I saw them against? Cork as well. I don't know. I mean, I think if this Dublin attack gets going, they can get in behind that Meath defence. But whether Meath can be just a team that can contain Dublin during the fixture and maybe try and hit them on the counter-attack, it's hard to know. We've had so many times in recent years where we've gone, yeah, Meath look well primed to give Dublin a good crack. And I would take the point that Dublin's level is probably not where they were at when they were winning All-Ireland after All-Ireland. But I still think Dublin are a little bit better than Meath, lads.
Just a little bit better, Owen. What do you think in terms of a margin?
Yeah, like the question is, what does the Jacks being back actually mean? Like, is it being back to the level where they are by a distance the dominant team in the country? I'm not sure if we're going to see that, but are they back enough for them to not be looking like they're on the downward and be much better than Meath? I think I'm not even sure that that's a return to form. I just think that that's just the standard of this team.
Where do you think they're at? To answer Kieran Whelan's question, what the win over Wexford is a bit of a stick and plaster, and we'll have to wait and see. Where do you think they're at right now?
Specifically, I think that the bookies have this right in having them as second favourites for the All-Ireland. That's where I think they are. I think they're the second best team in the country, and I think that the second best team in the country beats Meath. This is not two Division 2 teams going up against each other. That's what the form lines will tell you if you take 2022 into account. Dublin are not a Division 2 team. I think the performance against Wexford, I mean, we will know on Sunday how much we can read into it. I think you can judge it on the magnitude of victory. I know there are people in Meath who are confident that we'll win at the weekend, because that feeds into the fact that Meath came relatively close last year against Dublin, who were clearly flailing around trying to find some bit of form. But we still saw that flailing Dublin get to within an inch of actually making an All-Ireland final last year, which is a ridiculous level to be at when you're clearly in a bit of trouble. So it looks like they're in better form. It looks like the mood in the camp, to use that terrible cliche, is a bit more positive at the moment than it was last year. So that suggests to me that they're better than the team who almost made it to an All-Ireland last year. So that, to me, speaks of a team that's in pretty fine fettle, and Leinster Championship is surely coming their way. So I'm not necessarily sure that this is actually a very linear thing where the form we saw at various times over the last 12 months is just going to continue on the downturn. I think that there's a thing in the tail coming from Dublin. Whether or not it materialises in Ireland, I'm not convinced, but I think they are second favourites.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And I think that in terms of the Leinster Championship, it's fair enough to say that there's never been a point where the teams have been closer and still expect Dublin to win the thing, which I think is where we're at heading into this weekend and beyond. A couple of comments into us before we move on to the Hurling. O'Toole on YouTube saying, I think Derry made Tyrone look bad. I think more credit needs to go to Rory Gallagher and how he managed multiple All-Stars and stifled Morgan in goal. Darragh O'Toole says, not a eunuch in sight between Westmeath and Kildare. Again, nice misrepresentation of the point there, Darragh, good man. And Dave Cos is wondering, and we leave this one with you, Will, show Hank the doggo. It'll make it a real happy Friday. Let you work away.
Okay, right. You get the hurling predictions ready. I'll try and get away from
we want to hear more from you than we want to see Hank the doggo. I'm not going to lie. Although it will do wonders for our numbers. So feel free to
find him.
Get Hank up and running there. Waterford Cork is going to be our first port of call here. Actually, sorry. I'll reverse back slightly. We have not covered Tipperary Limerick in the football, which I think is a very hard one to call. And everybody is going for Limerick, apart from myself. I think it's one of the most 50-50 matches that we've looked at. I have slightly leaned on the side of Tipperary in that they've probably achieved a little bit more in the championships, obviously, over the last couple of years. Who the hell knows? Has anybody own anything significant to say about Tip Limerick?
Well, the reason I'm going for Limerick in this one is because of the experience that they got in that win over Clare and actually getting a championship win in unbelievably dramatic fashion, having a week off to recover. If it was last weekend, I'd probably be painting that as a negative, but because it's been a week off, I'm painting it as a positive for this Limerick side. I don't think Tipperary have been great. I think that if you look at league position, obviously they're both getting promoted out of 2 different divisions, and I know I use that logic to predict that Clare would beat Limerick in the last round, so I haven't a clue what I'm talking about really when it comes down to this sort of stuff. It's on a knife edge, this one. But Limerick, I think, just after the boost of the Clare win, I think might just edge this.
Very difficult to call. We move on to the hurling, and Dave is very excited. He's spotted something that I haven't, which must be Hank. Moving on to the hurling, Waterford Cork to begin with. Let's see which way we're all going here. Waterford across the board. Owen, Aisling, Will, myself and Tommy all go in the same direction. And I suppose it's another one of those fixtures that, while we are all going the same way, it's not going to be astonishing. Will, like, obviously Walsh Park is a factor, Cork's 3 defeats in a row is a factor, a little bit of credit the last day. Of course there's more improvement to come. We may see that this weekend, but on the evidence it does look like Waterford.
Does. Looks like it could be Waterford by a little bit of a distance too if they really get going in this fixture. So Waterford are trying to bounce back from their defeat against Limerick just before the break, and given the form that Clare have shown so far, Waterford got a bit of work to do if they're going to qualify for a Munster final. You know, they came flying into championship this year on the back of winning the National Hurling League, where realistically they demolished Cork at Semple Stadium in the Division 1 decider. And the fear, if you were a Cork fan, would be that something similar could happen this weekend if Waterford can get moving, and particularly the damage that their forward line were able to do at Semple Stadium that day. If they can do that at Walsh Park again, Waterford could run up a scoreline. Just a very quick clarification, and this almost proves the point that we were talking about yesterday about how poorly GAA records are kept. Massive dispute now over where Patrick Horgan actually is with the top scoring. So he's level with Joe Canning, according to Echo Live in Cork, who went through all of the numbers very carefully with a fine comb, and that he will take the record tomorrow. There's some dispute and some people saying that he actually went a couple of points ahead of Joe Canning after the Clare game, but it seems that he's level currently because he scored 19 points this season, 10 and 9 across the first 2 games. So he will take the record outright at Walsh Park at the weekend. I think the GA website was saying that he's 7 behind. So it's amazing that you can have that much variance of anywhere between 7 behind and 2 ahead. And just goes so the GA need to keep the records better than they do. But Patrick Horgan probably gets the record, but will be on the losing team against Waterford.
Yeah, I think that's seems to be the way things are. Right. What's Hank? We never got around to our Hank selecting his games of the week every week.
No, he's never quite got to that level where he's actually happy enough to decide to take, say, 2 things off. Like, say, we get a plate with the same treat on both. He doesn't seem to be overly comfortable with doing that. This morning, like, he seems incredibly unhappy. I'm sure Dave is delighted on YouTube, but he was playing single-handedly with his little tug of war rope that I have for him that we usually play with, and he was pulling away at that and then barking at me for not pulling the other side of it. Yeah. And now he's been picked up, and all he's doing is looking back down at his rope to try and get back to it. So I'll let him back down in a minute.
He's just a bit camera shy? Is that what we're saying here?
No, he's never been camera shy, as he decides to give the microphone a good kick there. But no, I think he just wants to play. He's at the point.
We need to get some sort of a light. We need to get him set up with a set of headphones, don't we? And,
he'll stay quietly for the rest of the quick picks there.
Come on, Hank, you've served the purpose for Dave this morning anyway. That is Waterford Cork. Clare Limerick next up. Whoa. So Owen, myself and Tommy are all going for Limerick. Aisling is going for Clare, and Will O'Callaghan, he's alive and well, and he's back going for a draw. Like, look, it is a hard one. I can't tell you why I absolutely think Limerick are going to win this, other than every time Limerick pop up in quick picks, I have to go for them.
Well, look, firstly, draws are perfectly okay to go for. I think we need to establish that now, because there was some claims it was an issue back in the league. I have to pick one way or another. This is a game where I genuinely think it could be a draw, because Clare have been in complete and utter flying form so far, first 2 fixtures. Now, they've got 2 difficult games to finish. They still have to play against Limerick and Waterford, but they're in a really good place to qualify in the Munster Championship. They drew against Limerick when the teams met in Cusack Park earlier this year. Clare possibly should have won that game. Limerick go into this still without Cian Lynch. Still some question marks about the performance for the first hour, particularly against Tipperary last week. I know that Limerick performed really well in the last 10 or 11 minutes of that game and got the job done. Again, they reached the 30 points. Incredible consistency that we've seen from Limerick so far this year. But I just fancy Clare to really push them to their limit. And while it may well be a case that Limerick do something similar to Tipperary last week and just have a little bit too much at the end, I would not be surprised at all if Clare get a result And in this case, I think that result could well be a draw. Look, we had a draw when we had a very close game between Wexford and Galway earlier this season. It is a round robin section. It is a case of two teams looking to advance towards a Munster final here. And I'm going draw in Ennis this weekend.
Yeah, and look, it'll be an interesting fixture from loads of different reasons as to who's actually going to be on or not on the Limerick team. And I'm sure everybody will be keeping an eye on that. I don't know if it's going to be too much of a...
They'll go strong, Adrian. I think they actually have to because they underperformed last week. I think if they had gone out and put in the expected performance against Tipperary and won by 8 or 10 points and absolutely eased home with the victory, where it actually felt like it was an 8 or 10 point beating as opposed to them just finishing the game strongly, I think John Kiley might have been tempted to rotate his squad a little bit more. But instead, it was a win of that variety, but not that in reality. So I think he'll want to go out and keep his team in pretty good form because they've got a break coming up after this before a potential Munster final too. So I think John Kiley goes strong.
Not the events post Tipperary match not a factor?
Well, I think it could be a factor, as Will says, maybe in a positive sense after the performance last weekend. Like, I think if there's any negative headlines that have been around Limerick, they've tended to answer that in one way, which is a pretty dominant performance. Like, for me, it was just a sense of, do I overthink this and look at what Clare have done and have they played strong enough opposition to give them a chance against Limerick? Or do I just underthink this and just tip Limerick for every game that they're involved in? So that's kind of pretty much the rationale here. I think Clare have been great to watch and brilliant in attack. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they match up physically with Limerick. It does feel that that's the sort of only way, or that's the theoretical only way that you can beat Limerick if you're big enough and strong enough to beat them. Can a team play around them? Can a team be smart enough and quick enough in attack to beat Limerick? That'll be a really interesting one if there's some sort of kryptonite to Limerick, because it does feel that the narrative is out there that the only way you can beat Limerick is through brute strength, which is what Limerick are very good at themselves. So Clare, I think, maybe have the tools to show something different this weekend. So really looking forward to it. And I hope, I'm glad to hear that Will thinks that they're going to be at full strength. I really hope that we're going to see the two top teams potentially in Munster at the moment go toe to toe. I know Waterford will have something to say about that, but the two top teams, championship form wise anyway, if they're at full strength, it'll be a cracker.
Last fixture to take a look at is Dublin-Kilkenny. Let's see which way everyone's going on this one. We have Kilkenny across the board, and like there is, Will, I know that the Wexford game particularly, I know I went for Wexford in that one, and you're like, well, traditionally that they should get over the line here. And you look at the table and you think, well, Dublin are in a very strong position, but when you dig into it in terms of the quality they've played, like Kilkenny are the only, I mean, look at Wexford notwithstanding, and obviously Dublin came through that test, but Kilkenny are the only team that have played maybe one of the traditional powerhouses, and it's certainly a factor as to why I'm leaning their direction. What are you thinking?
Yeah, obviously, look, the fact that Dublin started off with, they had two of their first three games were Laois at home, Westmeath away, where they were expected to pick up points. They were 4 of the points that they put up on the board. And then the bonus was to go to Wexford and get a result, which leaves them in a very strong position to qualify from the Leinster Championship, even if it's not for the Leinster final, to be one of the top 3 to go to the All-Ireland Championship proper. This is now the first of 2 big tests for them. They've got Kilkenny at home. They got completely bullied by Brian Cody's side when the teams met in the league in Parnell Park just a couple of months ago. And that physicality from the Kilkenny forward line is something that Dublin will have to deal with much better if they're to have any chance of getting a result in this game on Saturday evening. I think Kilkenny still have too much for Dublin, even if Dublin do tighten up from that performance in the league. They obviously played really well away from home against Wexford, and it was a collective effort. No more so probably personified than Sutcliffe going in for a block on Liam Ryan right towards the end of the game, when he could easily have just decided to take up a position to make it difficult for the pass. He broke himself to get across and actually make a block down. That's what you'll get from Dublin. Again, as I've said multiple times on this show, they've got an elite free taker who is always going to be able to stick over scores for them if Dublin get presented with enough chances. But I think this Kilkenny team is just a little bit too strong for them, and Kilkenny bounced back from the Galway game and put themselves right back into a very strong position to qualify for the final, because Dublin and Galway will meet at Parnell Park in the last round of fixtures. So this could be set up very nicely for the last round, because you're going to have Kilkenny against Wexford, and you're going to have the last game's in Salthill, so Galway against Dublin in the last round. So Galway should have enough done by the time we get to the final round, but it might be a chase to see who's in the final 2 positions. Kilkenny to win this weekend and to put themselves in pole position to qualify, I think.
All right, we've all gone that way. Will, Eoin, Hank, thanks a million. That's Quick Picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
All right, it's nearly 8:45. A very good morning to you, wherever it is you're picking us up this morning. I hope you're well, and do keep the comments coming into us. So if you have anything on your mind about the football, the rugby, we've Alan Quinlan coming up live a little bit later on to look ahead to the weekend's Heineken Cup and plenty more besides as well. So whatever it is that's on your mind this morning in relation to rugby, do get your comments and questions in, and we'll come back to him a bit later on. You are watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. As I said, that's coming up. We'll have Ronan Jones in studio as well from Whoop, and we're all taking on the Try-a-Thigh in a few weeks' time, 3 weeks' time at this stage, so probably a good time that we start doing a bit of training. We'll have more on that in just a little bit as well. So it is, as I said, 8:45. JD, good morning to you.
Adrian, how are you?
A great morning. Never mind good morning. Great morning.
It's a good morning to be a Spurs fan. A 3-0 win, biggest league win since 1983. And it was, I'd love to have been there last night, just looking at the television. It seemed to be an absolutely fantastic atmosphere. Harry Kane said he's the best he played in. And Eoin, well done. It looks like you're getting danger money for getting some of those interviews last night.
Yeah. Congratulations, John. What a sad little life is what I would feel like doing this morning, going into that sort of ramble. But when you look at that atmosphere last night, it's kind of hard to argue against the fact that Tottenham are in a good place. Obviously the significant factor is the fact that regardless of the result last night, it was out of Tottenham's hands. But if you want to go all in on Spurs, the one argument you could make is that they did as much as they possibly could to punish Arsenal in a way that might mentally destroy them for one of their remaining 2 games. That's the one thing you could say in terms of, it not being in Spurs' hands. Maybe it is. Maybe the fact that they beat them significantly and showed that they are a better team is actually a way that they can bring it back into their hands and suggest that Arsenal might be frail come Monday night.
They put a seed of doubt into Arsenal's minds, I think. And I think Arsenal will beat Everton. I think Everton are not great on the road. And I think a home game, last day of the season, I think Arsenal can win that. But Newcastle is the key game now. It is in Arsenal's compass to win this Champions League spot. But what? White, do we know what his hamstring situation is? Gabriel limped off. Kieran Tierney isn't fit. Rob Holding will be suspended now. This is a real test of Arsenal's character. And I thought Arteta was rattled in that interview that he did with Sky last night. Did you get to the Conservative Club, Owen?
I did.
Okay.
I met your nephew, John.
Oh, did you? Good. Duncan.
An absolute gent of a man. I'd say he enjoyed last night. It took me, so the Conservative Club, for people who don't know, John tipped me off about it. And I looked it up on Google, obviously, and there was I put the pin on Google Maps. And it took me about 5 attempts walking past it before I realised what it actually was. That there is cars parked outside it, like a dilapidated old building. And there was kind of like a man outside having a cigarette. And I had to ask him, is this a Conservative Club? And he was like, it is. I hope you're not planning on going in to film in there. And then sure enough, a guy comes out the front door and he's like, oh, and Sheehan. And I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Duncan. I thought you were John Duncan's nephew. So it all just kind of came together nicely. I literally bumped into your nephew as things turned out.
So he saw the off-the-ball mic then, did he?
Yeah. He's got similar mannerisms to you, John. You can see that you're genuine relatives. I loved the Winston Churchill photo in the middle of the place. I was told it's not necessarily a conservative political club, but I guess, they have to be on brand in some way. Very, very interesting place. It felt... I think you referred to it as a speakeasy before I flew over, John, and I think that's exactly how you describe it. A genuine place. I think the high road here where I am at the moment is very much mainstream, and the Conservative Club is for people, the grizzled veterans of the old White Hart Lane path.
Yeah, the old stories, and people have been to hundreds of games and haven't missed a game since their wedding or something like that 50 years ago, that kind of thing. So cheap pints and hopefully you kept your Arsenal affiliations under wraps on.
I did. I felt like this. I felt I had disowned them at some points yesterday. It was just because there were so many people who were genuinely warning me about the possibility of trouble between the supporters. But I guess what they were worried about was that if Arsenal win, what you would have is 55,000 angry people as opposed to 5,000 angry people. And those Arsenal fans were angry. To be fair, that was the hostile environment last night. Was going out to chat to the Arsenal fans, not the other way around.
Because at previous games at White Hart Lane or the new stadium, the police would be in a phalanx, and they would escort all the fans down the street to the south stand or the whatever what used to be the south stand, but whatever area they're in, and then they go in, and then they're in a pen, and then they've got to wait, and then they go out. Did you see an organisation to the way the Arsenal fans were corralled last night, or was the case more of a free for all?
Yeah, that's exactly how it was done. So they came out and of their away exit, and they couldn't turn right. There was like police fans all lined up, and you could see like a wave of Spurs fans waiting there, and the same once they came down the other road as well to stop them going down certain ways. And then after about maybe 40 minutes post full time, the vans all moved and all the Spurs fans came through. It was kind of like it is a little bit threatening, because like I was standing there chatting to Arsenal fans, and there was maybe like a dozen of us there. And then you could see about 50 metres away, just behind this wall of police, like thousands of Spurs fans, like goading the Arsenal fans. And I'm like, is there going to be like a charge here or something like that? It felt a little. There was a bit of an edge like that, but of course that was the whole plan for the police. I don't know. It was interesting. I think I was just probably a little bit.
Is it?
I don't. Yeah.
Is it a bit like hold me back, let me at him sort of stuff, or like if the barriers weren't there, would they actually go at it?
No, I think if it was the other way around, I think that would have been interesting, or not interesting, maybe a bit more controversial. Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably what people were cautious about, is that if there's no way, it's just 5,000 people. I don't even know how many away fans there are. 5,000 is a pretty arbitrary number. There's that number of people in the stadium, goading the fans on their way out, possibly looking for a bit of trouble. Then the home crowd are not going to be too happy. But the other way around, I think everything was fine.
Question of the morning, JD, is: would you rather be in Tottenham's position right now or Arsenal's? Hypothetical, forget about your allegiances.
I'd rather be in Arsenal's, because they've got the lead in the table.
But a tougher couple of fixtures.
They do, but it's all about the points on the board. And Burnley are not going to be an easy task for Spurs early on a Sunday morning. They got to break them down. We know they're going to put 10 players behind the ball. So if Spurs can beat Burnley, that adds another layer of pressure to Arsenal. And it's all about Newcastle. I'm all in with the Saudis for one night only on Monday. To see if Newcastle can take a point off Arsenal, a couple of points off Arsenal, or even win the game. So, look, I still think Arsenal have it, but I think they'll be rattled from what happened last night. And I think, to me, what I saw was a callousness and a youthful naivety to Arsenal. Like Rob Holding, don't know what he was doing, to be honest. And Son played for a lot of that, and Son was clever. And Harry Kane and Son were the two class players on the pitch. And I think it's psychologically a huge tipping point, whoever gets fourth, because for Arsenal, they've got a young team, youngest team in the league, and an undisciplined team, by the way, 13th red card under Arteta. But they can build, they can get a striker if they get into the Champions League. And if Conte gets in the Champions League, you feel that he's going to stay. He might try and build something with Daniel Levy. If they don't get into the Champions League, will Kane stay? There's a lot riding on this.
I think there's an exodus, even from Conte's point of view.
Well, Conte, he either wants everything to be his way, or he's not interested, and he sets out a stall in that regard, and that's been his legacy all through his managerial career. That Chelsea, once it didn't start working out in the second season, he was gone. So he's not a guy, I know generally about 3 seasons. You can't see Arteta's there for the long haul. Conte might not be there for the long haul. So Conte is like bringing like players like Bentancur in and Kulusevski, and he's there to make an impact in the medium term, not the long term. So he needs the backing to do that. And Tottenham are a club that generally been quite parsimonious in giving their backing.
Can I ask you the question in a slightly different way? If somebody said you've got to put your mortgage on one of them to finish in the Champions League, I'm asking the right man here, I know that. Which way would you go?
I do think Arsenal have the edge, but I do feel Tottenham have the momentum, and I just feel we might just get it. And I'm hoping that. Oh, and the noise is the key thing at that stadium, isn't it? That stadium, though, the acoustics are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, like as I said earlier on, again, you do get swept away in the moment, but you do kind of think, it's a really, really tough task to come to the stadium and win. But I'm sure it was just at a level above any other any other night. And a lot of Spurs fans did say that it was like the best they'd ever heard it. A lot of people mentioned that West Ham game in the Carabao Cup before Christmas as like a night with massive passion, according to match scorers, to regular match scorers. But last night was up there. It is. It's John. It's an incredible stadium, and they definitely have thought about how can we make this a competitive asset to us when they were redeveloping the whole stadium, because that's exactly what it is. And I think you're right. If they get Champions League next season and Conte stays and they add a few more players to the mix, like you'd wonder what the limit actually is for this Tottenham team all of a sudden, after at the start of this season wondering would they have Harry Kane at the end of the season, would they even qualify for the Europa League. So it's amazing how things have changed, and I know we can get carried away and with one result, but it does seem the mood music in this part of London is very, very positive.
It was the perfect night for a Tottenham fan. It's the Tottenham Stadium. It's the old rivals. It's players get sent off, lose the head. Managers lost the plot on the sideline. Comprehensively beat them out the gap. Put the seed of doubt in the mind. It's the perfect scenario for a Tottenham fan.
Well, how often do you get to be able to celebrate for half an hour that you're going to beat Arsenal comprehensively in a league game that matters?
Never.
And be able to sing the chants that you were singing. That's a rare thing. That's a very rare thing for Spurs. As I said, 1983, the last time they won a game so comprehensively against Arsenal in the league, like 40 years. So I've been a Spurs fan for many years, watching Arsenal win league titles, the Invincibles team, 2002, 2004, Wenger, and for years they were definitely top dogs in North London, and now it's quite an even keel, and for a few years in recent years we've been the top dogs. So I think since Conte's come in, Tottenham have been clearly the third best team in the league, clearly, like behind City and Liverpool, but fifth isn't great. The Europa League is a sap. Even saying the words Europa League just saps my energy, to be honest.
Well, Jose Mourinho got very emotional about it, JD, the other week. Your former boys.
So I'm hopeful, and it's going to be a really exciting run-in from Sunday into Monday of next week. But it's an interesting area of London, Eoin, and I thought you might be in some kind of salubrious 5-star hotel now this morning, but obviously
he's actually disappeared to such a salubrious 5-star hotel. You're reliably informed.
Have you been to Tottenham?
I haven't, but I've been watching obviously everything that Owen's done over the last while, and listened to you about it as well, including your post last night. And I think he's back now. He's checked out at the salubrious hotel. As somebody pointed out on YouTube, JD, you won't find Henry Winter standing outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at 6:30 of a Friday morning. So he's certainly earning his corn there. But yeah, it seems like it's an amazing stadium. I definitely would like to get there at some point.
And what made you be here this morning? Obviously, the atmosphere of it being near the stadium, but it's a completely different place on a weekday. It's it's an area of London that a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and hopefully we will play out the other packages I put together from yesterday, where I spoke to somebody who's got a very, very good knowledge of the history of the club, and I guess the history of the redevelopment of White Hart Lane, and the effort that the Supporters Trust are really trying to make in terms of connecting the stadium, and I guess the success of Tottenham that's incoming with the local community, because it does seem that they're in different places entirely, that there is a bit of a disconnect here. Like how do you make the area around a gorgeous stadium like this more successful as a result of it? Like, it's a very, very hard question to answer, and it's very, very hard to know if a club actually has the best interest at heart sometimes for that. Because you're right, it isn't the nicest area of London, and the stadium is the nicest stadium in London. There is just something so odd about the fact that this is dropped right in the middle of this area, isn't it? Like, you've been here. It does feel a little discombobulating, and I know it's not the only stadium that's like that. In fact, a lot of stadiums are in pretty downtrodden places, but it does seem it's pretty stark given how gorgeous this stadium is.
Yeah, well, the old White Hart Lane was much more of a blend into the area. But yeah, like it's funny, like it's built on the site, but they have to try and look to regenerate into the community, because it is a club that does have a good link to the community. But I suppose there's more of an urgency on that now, because you don't want it to become an anomalous feature of the area. Did you get any scran, Eoin, over there? Did you sample any of the local grub?
Oh, did I? I'm trying to think what
he was having the cheap beers in the stadium last night, JD.
Have the neck oil, the Beavertown neck oil?
No, I didn't. I haven't actually. I actually can't remember what the last thing was that I ate. I got a cup of coffee on the way here in a lovely Turkish place up the road that I might go back to in a little while. That looks great, but. No, I didn't, John. I actually just can't remember what I ate. What did I eat? I can't remember. I should have.
He's been so numbed by the
humble pie from a 3-0.
Humble pie. There you go. Oh, that's sorry. As I was saying earlier on, I did queue up to try and get something at half time yesterday. The queue was too long, and then I was like, I need to go back and actually watch the football match that I'm at. So I didn't actually get anything. But yeah, no, the bars and the food stalls and all that in this place also top notch. So. It's all coming up Spurs. You can have a lovely team and a lovely stadium and a lovely pie, and everything is lovely in the garden right now.
It's killing you. We could not have selected better game for you to go to. So fair play. JD, just before we let you off, what's the main stuff that's?
Are you going tomorrow? You're presumably going to.
I'm not.
Right, because this is your Tottenham, is Leinster.
It's a sore point. I'm not. No, I have a family thing to be at.
So we got commentary of the game. so you can listen in on Off the Ball Saturday. We're on air from 1 to 6 from the Aviva, broadcasting from the stadium. It's set that Leo Cullen will name the same team later on that played against Leicester. Otherwise, Ian Galvin will serve a one-match ban for Clare. He will not be available against Limerick on Sunday in the round robin of Munster. So we have that game. We got Dublin Kilkenny tomorrow, Waterford Cork on Sunday, Clare and Limerick on Sunday, Derry and Monaghan on Sunday, the Dubs and Meath, and the Kildare Westmeath in the Leinster doubleheader as well. There's League of Ireland tonight, the Shamrock Rovers against Derry City, the top two in action at Tallaght Stadium from 7:45. Also Dundalk Bohemians, Shelbourne Drogheda United, Finn Harps against UCD. Seamus Parr 6 under par at the Byron Nelson, 6 shots off the lead. The Luton Town against Huddersfield tonight, and racing today later, Adrian at Kilbeggan and Leopardstown.
Lovely, JD. You've been very magnanimous in victory, so fair play to you. I think Eoin appreciates that this morning. And it is almost 9 o'clock, and thanks a million for tuning in this morning. Do keep your comments coming in. We've Alan Quinlan still to come, and lots more of the reaction as well from Eoin in London from last night. And we'll have Ronan Jones in studio next, who's going to be talking to us about our whoops and what we need to be doing with them ahead of the Tri-Thai in a couple of weeks' time. And I think me, more than most, could probably do with all that advice. First of all, John Giles and Eddie Gray on last night's show talking about the maverick that was Charlie George.
What was Charlie George like as a footballer?
I wasn't a big fan, Nathan. He'd a lot of ability, but you couldn't depend on him week in and week out. He could do a lot of good things, but let's put it this way, he wouldn't have got anywhere near our team.
Right, didn't have the consistency.
No.
No, it's funny you talk about the Arsenal and the very top side. But from 1965 to 1975, I was telling John this, don't know if he remembers, we played Arsenal about 23 times and they only beat us twice, I think.
Right.
You know, and they were a great team. I mean, if you look through the records, us playing against the Arsenal, we usually came out on top. We did it in the League Cup final, we did it in the FA Cup final, and normally we did it in league games as well. I think John would agree with that.
Yeah, I think we beat them 10 times on the bounce, Eddie. Well, it was one of those
years.
Yeah.
All right, that was John Giles and Eddie Gray on the show last night talking about the old days, and it's a great chat. You can check out the full piece. It's up on our YouTube channel. Now, I'm delighted to say that Ronan Jones from Whoop joins us in studio. Morning to you, Ronan.
Morning, Adrian. How's it
going?
How
are you keeping?
Oh, good.
Oh, well.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Nice, quiet weekend ahead.
Small matter of a game, this weekend.
We're both going to Croke Park this weekend, it turns out.
Yeah, we are indeed, yeah.
Come here, people will be familiar at this point that Team OTB, or at least most of us anyway, Colm, are taking on the Tri-Thai in a few weeks' time, and we're sort of dividing the various legs around. You're taking no leg.
No, so Ronan, you could come in here to shame me about why I should, and then you can also shame Adrian why he shouldn't be taking part.
Well, I think both of those things be relevant. I'm basically have whittled it down to doing the swim as part of a leg with the team that'll be announced a little bit later on, and then most of the fully committed people are going to take on the full thing. I basically have a thing called, I've been boring people about this for the last while, patellar tendinopathy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it basically means that the tendon in my knee there is not hanging on by a huge amount onto the shin bone, so there's a bit of work to be done to recuperate. And I actually thought, I spoke to the physio and I was like, look, I might go ahead and do this run, and he was like, yeah, you might be better off not doing any running at all for the next while until we get this thing right. So I'm on a journey, Ronan, I think as an American might put it, to try and get to a position where I can get back to doing some of that stuff. But I have to say, and I know you're here, so I'm sort of half obliged to say it, but I am actually finding this really useful with that program and the recovery on it.
Brilliant. And look, listen, if we can get you to the start line this year, we'd be happy. So
yeah. Well, I am getting to the start line because I'm going to do the swim, so that's at least you get that buzz of everything that's associated with that. But what I have found is that I'm doing a program that's basically a stretching and circuit program, which I'm doing sort of every second day, four to five times a week, and then I'm in to see the physio every other week. And I am actually finding it useful to be able to, in the conversation with him, sit down and look back over my whoop and say, in terms of recovery and in terms of the effort that I'm putting in, it is actually really practical useful practically to have conversations with him about it.
Great. No, I'm delighted to hear that. Ultimately, what Whoop is trying to do is trying to provide you with the data to make decisions around it. So, when you are doing your hour rehab a day, it's also looking at, okay, what was the other 23 hours? What was I doing? Was I stressed in work? Was I sitting all day and not getting up and moving? Was I maybe not focusing on eating properly or hydrating, and did I sleep for 4 hours? And then when you go do the rehab session, you might feel it's a poor quality session, whereas if you're controlling those controllables and you see it in the data and you have the information there to back it up, then actually you go in and you do the hour rehab and you come out feeling great the other side. So that's ultimately what Whoop is trying to do. It's trying to provide you with information there to make better decisions.
When you're on that road, and you've been through it in a far more significant way than I have, but when you're on that sort of path to recovery, almost that rehab piece, like it's nearly more important that you have something like this at that point, because like knowing when to push yourself is all very well and grand when you're like at 100% fitness, but when you're managing the return from an injury, it's nearly more important.
Absolutely, especially when you're as bullheaded as I am. So I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of injuries in the last year. Don't do them by half measures either, so they're quite serious when they happen. But ultimately, what I was able to do while I can't train or I wasn't on the pitch, I was able to make sure I was looking after everything outside of it. So I was getting maybe 1 or 2 bike sessions a week, not overdoing it, but I was making sure that my sleep was on point. I was making sure that I was eating right, I was stretching, I was trying meditation. I'm kind of a serial self-experimenter, so I was trying new supplements before going to bed, see what impact that had on me. And ultimately, when you see it in the data, but also you feel it, it just reinforces the fact that yes, this does work for me.
If you're doing something like meditation, so obviously it works off, it's a sensor and it's working off your heart rate and it's picking up all that information, and it's also got the intuitive bit where you can go on and you can journal what you're up to, and you can sort of edit the real lived experience, I suppose, beyond what it's actually picking up. What impact does that meditation have on your scores? And
yeah, so there's 2 sides to it. There's obviously many different types of meditation you can do, but generally what I do is just kind of focusing on breath work and trying to clear my head. And what I'll do is I'll just pull up the app and look at my heart rate in real time, and you can see over the course of it, even a 10-minute block, that actually your heart rate does come down. So while you might be stressed and you could be sitting here, your heart rate's at 90 beats a minute, which would be relatively high for doing nothing. Actually, after a 10-minute block, if you can get it down to 50 beats a minute and you just feel that this has worked, and you're just seeing the data and you're just seeing your heart rate coming down, it kind of just does reinforce that it works. You'll also see it then in terms of your sleep quality and also your next day recovery, which both of which will be impacted not necessarily directly within the data, but also more so by your physiology and what happens when you meditate.
Do you build that stuff into your day, like meditation?
I try to obviously. Schedules with work and football can be difficult, so if I can get 3 a week, I'd be happy. But some days it's less, some days you might have a bit more time, some days you might swap it out and just read before bed, and that's kind of a form of silent meditation, if you will, where it's just clearing your head, trying to get everything out, and just focus on a bit of me time.
Sometimes like staring at the wall or like looking at the latest sort of Wagatha Christie stuff on TikTok is as useful meditation as anything.
It can be, to each their own.
To each their own. That probably explains me, Ronan, to be fair. I'm going to be using it for I'm doing the swim leg of Triathlon in a few weeks, and Ger was saying during the week, it's not really much of equipment, as he's trying to sort of hang on to the idea of doing 2 legs himself. It's a 250 metre swim, and it's down the river and it's with the current and all that sort of stuff. Now I've been in the pool, I was telling Colm earlier, I've been in the pool twice a week, every week for the last 6 months, but not actually doing any training. It's all sort of in with the young ones and trying to get them to learn how to swim. So I haven't actually been doing any training, which is a bit of a disaster. I absolutely plan to start on Sunday. On a practical level, what do I need to do with this thing? So it's obviously waterproof, and I log it on the phone before I start that I'm going for a swim, and then leave the phone in the locker, or what can you tell us about how to use that?
To be honest, you shouldn't even need to. So the way the Whoop works is it'll detect everything that you do, and it'll track it automatically. And there's a couple of features, folks who are a lot smarter than I am have developed them, but there's workout auto classification, where basically you go when you do a workout, it'll pick it up, and after the session it'll actually tag it for you in the app without you having to do anything, which should be pretty nice. You just jump in, set about your business, jump out after, and then once you connect back to your phone, everything will be logged there for you. I think we sent a couple of hydro sleeves as well, so
I have one of them at home,
for swimming it might be a bit easier. It's basically just a silicone band.
And is that just to sort of, obviously I need all the help I can get, is it like an aerodynamics thing? Is that
exactly.
I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, listening into this chat, Ronan, do you have confidence in Adrian's performance here based on his body language today, what he's getting involved in with Whoop? Can Whoop help him here?
I think so, yeah. I think he's playing it down, to be honest with you.
Yeah. A bit like my prediction for Kildare to beat Westmeath earlier on. There's a double Yarra going on here. No, I've an awful. Actually, I've an awful. My mental strength around exercise is desperate. Like, it's really poor. It's why I've let like the tendinopathy issue that I have go for about 15 years. That I made stabs at points to try and. I'm going to go and try and get this thing fixed. But ultimately, I have no mental strength to actually stick with it. And to be honest, and look at again, you're sat here, but actually, a physical act of wearing this thing has been a brilliant sort of reminder that I can't back out of it. And because I'm logging the scores, it's a more tangible. If I was doing all that stuff away from having any log of it, to be honest, I could easily see that I would have given it up, because I'm on a path. I can see the scores. I can see when I've done a session. It's really interesting to see, like what I have a perception of how that session has gone, and then I'm looking at sort of, what score I've got for it. They don't always match up, which is a good thing, I think, in terms of the real information about how you're performing.
Absolutely, and there's even just subtle kind of reinforcements where you open up your app and you see that you have a 90% recovery. You might necessarily feel like doing something, but actually this is telling you, look, your body's signaling
good day to go.
Good day to go. And then on the converse, for a lot of people who are type A and maybe on the opposite end of the spectrum, where they're trying to work out absolutely every single day and they're just crushing their body day after day, some days they wake up and they might have a poor recovery score and have slept poorly, and actually that's a signal, maybe today isn't the day to go and push it, maybe today's the day to take a rest day or to focus on something else. So everyone's experience is going to be different with it. You will use the data very different to how I will use it, very different to how Colm might use it, but ultimately it's just there to help you make better decisions.
What are you hearing back from? I know that there was obviously excitement last year when the Tyrone captain went up and picked up Sam Maguire, and he's wearing the wearable, obviously, and I think increasingly when you look at sport across the globe, particularly in the US, you see the Whoop band appearing sort of left, right and centre with, whether it's NBA or NFL, a lot of the golfers obviously wearing it, and there's a lot of interesting data coming back from that. What are you hearing back from them in terms of like what they're getting at it from? And obviously you feel free to thread in your own experience with me into that at that elite level in terms of the information that's coming back.
So it's actually a very interesting one. So in professional sports, like, everything is taken care of for the most part for these athletes. So this is really the 1%, where they already have coaches, nutritionists in place, and they have everything taken care of for them when they travel. And for them, it's just about refining the process slightly. Whereas when you look at GAA, like, everyone who plays on Sunday, for example, is going to have to get up and go to work on Monday morning. And actually, we don't have the same luxuries, and we don't have all of the same facilities. Although, thankfully at the indicated level, we do have quite a bit. So I'm not trying to dismiss that, but I'm just trying to say that a lot of pressure is on us as individuals to make sure we're taking care of everything outside of training, for example. So, for example, the entire Meath team have Whoop devices now, and we all probably use it slightly differently. Some lads will have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go work, and sometimes earlier, go work on a farm, whereas some of us might be able to, us cushy office jobs might be able to lie in till 9. And so ultimately it's going to be used for different purposes. But I think in the GAA sphere it is kind of a unique one where there is an onus on us as individuals to take care of ourselves, because ultimately when you turn up at Sunday afternoon, nobody cares if you had a tough week in work, or you've only had the chance to sleep for 5 hours a night the last few nights. So having access to this information to just give you the nudges to make the better decisions in the week, a few weeks leading up to it, ultimately should help.
How does it so for an individual, you take that information and then you decide, I suppose, when you're at that elite level, what your program is going to be, but you can talk to your coaches on a one-to-one level and decide, my recovery isn't great at the minute or whatever, I'm not that good to go, so we'll tailor it down a bit. Whereas when you're in a team environment, how does that wash when you're sort of sidling up to Andy McEntee and going, listen, I'm not quite at it today? Or how have you found, either yourself or from the people that are using it at that level in a team environment? I presume it differs from coach to coach, obviously, but
it will, and some coaches are more hard-headed than others. But thankfully, like any experience I've had, they've all been very supportive of it, and a lot of it is actually to do with me making decisions outside of training, so that I come up to training with a higher capacity to go and perform. So a lot of it is the legwork done beforehand. But if there is something that does pop up, for example, if you are getting sick, when you feel it, but also you see it in your data, and all of a sudden your resting heart rate is 10 beats higher than it normally is, generally it's just a conversation with the physios and the team doctor, and they thankfully have a lot of sway, and they'll say, look, there is something off there, maybe don't go and try and push yourself today, or instead of doing the runs at the end, let's just come back in and do a bit of rehab instead, or let's focus on something else. So it just opens up a conversation around it. It's, nobody shows up and says, listen, I'm 30% recovered or 70% recovered, and I'm only going to do 30% of the session or 70% of the session. But it's just opening up a conversation and ultimately getting us to think about what we're doing outside of it in a bit more detail.
Are your recovery scores generally you can keep them pretty high because you're monitoring it all the time, or do they tend to fluctuate like the rest of us plebs?
No, they'll still vary, and it's important to note that having green recovery scores every single day isn't always the best thing, because it means you're probably living in the safe zone. There's days when we have a really tough training session where physically it's going to be tough to have a green recovery the next day. So it's it will vary. I was travelling a lot the last week, and the road sleep is tough to get. It's a luxury. So recovery scores dip, but as soon as I got back into a normal routine and tried to get it back up.
You probably want to get to a point where that coaching team or the medics are actually actively coming to you looking for that information, or that they're actively logging it somewhere almost, so that they have a good sense of it, particularly with a group that size where you're talking about 30 plus players, of where the group is at almost.
Yeah, for sure. So we still use a different app to log injuries every single morning, like most inter-county teams would. Like, how did you sleep? Whereas in the past it would have been a subjective, how did you sleep, 0 to 10. Most of the time it probably sits in a 6 or a 7, whereas now actually you have the data, you've exactly how you slept, exactly how you feel, and you can input that into the app and also then speak to the coaches about it, and they're great about giving feedback as well, and telling you, listen, if you are going through a tough training block, make sure you dedicate more time to sleep. You'll see the data in your app as well to reinforce that. So
how much does the information that you're getting back change on a match day versus like a good training session or a challenge match? Do you see that like, I have absolutely made the extra effort now today because whatever the context is?
Absolutely. There's no two ways about it. You can never really replicate match pace, and you see it in the data as well. I'll notice my strain score from a really tough session might be somewhere 17 or 18, whereas I've 19 touching 20 some days, and a lot of it has to do with the build up as well. So there's obviously going to be additional stress. Playing in Croke Park, for example, it tends to be a couple of degrees hotter on the pitch. There's the whole environment around it as well, where you will notice like your heart rate will be more elevated than if you're playing a challenge game in Dunganny or Park Tolchin on a Wednesday evening. So you will definitely notice in your data, and you'll also notice it the next day as well, after the big surge of adrenaline, not just from the game but also from everything that comes after it. Sleep is quite tough to get that night, and then your next day recovery mightn't always be the greatest. Do
you get that little buzzer when it goes past your optimal score? I've got it a few times where I've been like, and I'm interested to hear you talking about like 17, 18, 19, whereas like I can't even begin to tell you where my scores would typically be at. But it comes up at times where it says like, you've got an optimal score today based on all your factors, and it'll give you, when you're in the middle of your routine, it'll give you like a little buzzer to say, right, you've hit that now. Do you get that, or is it?
I would, if I'm doing my own sessions on a game day, I'll probably hit that in the warm up, and then
that's what I'm thinking, like halfway through the game or the warm up, where it's like, that's you done.
Yeah. And you can't turn it off as well, to be fair. So it's
looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, very much so. I think I was actually listening to you chat about it on the way in.
You were writing it down, pinning it up on the wall,
gritting my teeth. Looking forward to it. Yeah, look, it's. I personally have been looking forward to this since last year. Tough first half last year, and I think second half maybe showed a glimpse of what we know we could potentially do if we turn up. I had a goal chance last year in the second half, and I've had a score that it might have changed the game, and I haven't forgotten about that. But no, I'm looking forward to this year. I don't think anyone has given us a chance, which most people haven't in the past, so nothing new there. But yeah, looking forward to giving it a rattle.
I'm OTB AM as disassociates itself from its earlier item, is what I want to say here. But I know that Tommy Rooney, for sure, there's no way he believes that prediction, and I see Kieran Whelan as well this morning was saying that with yourself and a couple of the other ones back, that maybe there's a better chance than people are giving you credit for. But it'll be a cracker anyway. And listen, thanks a million for coming in. That's been really useful. It's given me fresh motivation to absolutely get into the pool on Sunday and get cracking on it. Thanks very much for coming in, Ronan.
No worries, thanks very much.
Ronan Jones from Whoop there. And we are taking on, as you're a bit aware at this stage, Try-a-Thigh. It's the start of June and it's all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. You can see whoop.com for lots more on that. Now, a reminder that the Football Pod Live, Paddy Andrews, James O'Donoghue, Tommy Rooney and special guests are taken to the road. We're off to Castlebar Thursday, June 2nd. It's all in celebration of Mayo football. We're also going to be looking at the championship race and exactly where it's at that point in time as well. Football Pod Live, Castlebar, June 2nd. Tickets on sale now. You can head along to otbsports.com/events to get yours today, and you can stay tuned as well for more details on more shows to come. Up next at 18 minutes past 9 of this Friday morning, Alan Quinlan on the weekend's rugby and plenty more. See you after these.
The team of OTB are taking on a challenge that requires fitness, a challenge that demands months of training and preparation, a challenge that requires knowing when to push and when to focus on recovery. Triathlons aren't easy, but having a fitness coach helps.
Whoop are helping us non-athletes.
You need all the help you can get.
Yeah, as I was saying, helping us non-athletes feel like pros in our challenge to complete a triathlon this summer.
OTB Sports, in partnership with Whoop. Unlock your inner potential with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that provides you with actionable feedback on your sleep, training, recovery and health. Check out whoop.com for more.
Paddy, I go, what? It goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
Paddy, I go, what? It goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Alright, it's 20 past 9. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM and it's a pretty interesting weekend of rugby. So to that end, Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Flying it, thanks. And loads to get into. We will, towards the end of the chat, talk about the new appointment, obviously, at Munster. We'll talk a little bit about the November internationals, obviously been confirmed in the last 24 hours, and the nominees as well for the men's and women's player of the year. So we will do all that. Be patient with us, folks. But obviously, we want to talk about the Heineken Cup semi-finals to begin with. And we'll start with the Leinster match. Quinny, Matt Williams was on during the week and he was saying that Leinster fans should be very excited on the basis of last weekend. There's lots more to come from this team. Do you go with that?
Yeah, you would think so. I think it was no surprise to many here in Ireland that they won in Leicester, and that's been respectful to Leicester. I think probably surprising in the manner, particularly those first 20-25 minutes. When they went 20 points up, the game was over really, because they're a very, very difficult team to claw back. If you want to beat Leinster, I think you're the one that has to take the lead and stop them and defend against them and be really physical against them. Chasing them is very difficult, and I thought they were superb last weekend. They did come under a bit of pressure in the second half. One area of concern is probably the scrum. Leicester kind of upset them a little bit there. Toulouse will target them tomorrow, but I think they're well rested. 2 weeks. Didn't go to South Africa, all these players, and they'll be very, very fresh going into the game. Toulouse may be fatigued a little bit. Who knows how that plays out? Sometimes that can work in your favour when you're kind of bruised and battered a little bit and really match hardened. So I expect Toulouse to be better. Munster probably could have beaten them last week, but I think Leinster will be in really good spirits. Game at home, full of Leinster people, and I think they'll go through.
On the expectation of Toulouse being better, like they very nearly came unstuck obviously last weekend and had very nearly come unstuck in the previous round before that, obviously over the two legs. Not dominating those games obviously can be seen, I suppose, as a bit of a negative, but they are coming out on the right side of them. In terms of where we're at with the competition, what's your read on that? Is it like a slow build in and we're suddenly going to see like the real Toulouse kind of materialise now, or is there something actually like wrong there?
They haven't been as good this year in the top 14, and in, I think in Europe they lost against Wasps in Wasps. Poor performance in round one against Cardiff. The other two games were affected by COVID. They kind of scraped into the knockout stages. Just on the format, I thought the round 16 games brought the competition to life. It was incredible and unbelievably exciting. The quarterfinals last week were brilliant as well. Great excitement right across the board. So the competition has really come alive from the round 16. Obviously, COVID affected the pool games. And Toulouse, are they going to get better? Well, they have the potential to beat anyone, Adrian. I think when you look at their players, they bought 7 internationals off the bench last week, and not just guys with 1 or 2 caps, experienced internationals, incredibly physical, powerful, and players who get into any other team or be close to getting into any other team, international side even. So they've so much depth and quality. I think where they've been affected this year is the amount of internationals they've had away, and Ugo Mola, their coach, probably hasn't ingrained them back into the Toulouse system as smoothly as we'll say the Irish and the Leinster players go back into their Leinster system. That's probably one explanation as to why they've been stuttering a bit. I don't think they're as fit as Leinster or as fit. And Munster last week, underpowered as regards to the physical stakes. Their fitness levels and the fitness levels of the Irish province has been always one of our big strengths. Toulouse were trying to slow the game down last week, walking Ambrin into lineouts. A couple of times the referee had to tell them hurry up. It kind of suits their mentality maybe that, they want to try and get into the opposition 22 and then just strike with some piece of brilliance and manage the tempo of the game. That's where Leinster have got to, back what they're really good at. And that's tempo, pace, energy, accuracy in the game and holding on to the ball. And I think that's where they cause Toulouse a lot of problems. But, when you Dupont, Intimac, Peter Aki in the centre, Ramos was brilliant last week. And the power up front, Mafu, Arnold in the second round, their back row, you can just start rattling off the players. Marchand, so when you start naming out their players, that gives you a bit of a reality check, Adrian. But I just think Leinster, probably the way they can keep the ball and how good they are at that. But the thing about Toulouse here is if Toulouse, get a score or two, and I think the game is in the balance. Leinster probably need this game to be over on 60, 70 minutes, going into the home stretch, I think. And if Toulouse are still in the mix, well, then they can hurt you at any stage. And they have that power, but I just think Leinster will be too fit for them.
You talked about like Dupont and Entomac specifically, like such a couple of players of obviously real quality that haven't really been on it over the last few weeks. Is it as simple, I suppose, 2 parts? Is it as simple as get the 2 of them right and then everything else sort of looks after itself? And also then like players of that quality who've been off colour a little bit maybe over the last few weeks, is it just easy when you're at that level? Sorry, not easy, but is it possible that they just bounce back into everything we've expected and seen from them over the last few years?
Yeah, I think it is, because that's what good quality internationals do. Even when they have a little dip in form, they can just come out and find that form, show their quality, show that special talent that they have. And when you talk about Intimac and Dupont, Munster marshalled them well last week, but they still both had outstanding performances. Dupont was sensational against Munster. But what Munster did last week is they didn't allow him to get the line breaks that we see him making a lot. Intimac scores a try, managed the game really well. And like if you were rating their performances out of 10, they'd be probably both 8s, possibly 9s out of 10. They were absolutely outstanding. And those two probably kept Toulouse going in the game. And particularly when Munster were 24-14 up, the way they could respond, I just think, you know, do you keep him quiet for 2 weeks in a row and stop Dupont making line breaks? Well, every opportunity that he kind of picked the ball up like last week, Munster were really, really alert, and they defended very well against them. But so there's a kind of a myth that they didn't play well. They were brilliant last week, and they were probably the reason why Toulouse found that energy that they needed and kept going. And Leinster have got to be very mindful of that. But, you know, Leinster themselves, you can't overly focus on the opposition. They've got to get their own stuff right. And the reason they're favourites for this competition, the reason they're so good is because they do the basics so well. Their set piece, their attack is so accurate. And I think they'll back themselves to do that. But, you know, good players that they have, you know, and the internationals, I just think Toulouse are a very, very dangerous proposition. And people realise that. I think Leinster will certainly realise that. And if you allow them play, they've got a lot of power and physicality, along with that finesse that they've got as well. So it should be a cracker. But the home advantage, I do think Toulouse will be better than what we've seen the last number of weeks. I think they will ask real questions of Leinster, but Leinster's defence is very good. I think the scenario of will Toulouse be fatigued? I think they'll be more battle-hardened and probably more cohesive. They've now had 3 weeks in a row, or 2 big games, La Rochelle and Munster, that will make them better, I think, and make them look at things and opportunities that they would have possibly exploited more.
Your politeness that the halfbacks are grand, what are you on about, is appreciated, Quinny. Just on the Leinster side, the Peter O'Mahony model, obviously from last weekend, I presume, and like the quality that Leinster obviously have in that department, it's sort of same again, that menace at the breakdown, slow down the ball, and that's half the winning of the game almost.
Well, if you're Toulouse and you're analysing what happened last week, you're trying to sometimes you can do it, Sam. If you just got guys who are really good at the breakdown, they're going to hurt you at some stage. So Toulouse will want to be way better at that. It's probably the reaction a little bit and their enthusiasm and accuracy to get in and protect their own ball. You see Julien Marchand in the Six Nations for France. He's incredible at getting turnovers. Mauvaka, even Dupont can get massive turnovers. So they can actually target Leinster in that situation themselves. But if you're Van der Fleer and Doris and Jack Conan, they'll certainly be trying to go after their breakdown. And it sometimes is a bit of body position because some of their players are so big that they're a little bit slower into the breakdown and their body positions aren't as low. So of course it'll be, Leinster will try and go at them there. Munster did a brilliant job with that last week, and it probably was one of the reasons why they were in the game and probably took the lead and looked like they were going to win it, because they turned Toulouse over so many times, and it was brilliant. One area of concern for Leinster, and they've got to get it right, they have an international front row, but Toulouse's scrummaging ability is incredible, and that's where Munster lost the game last week. So I think you're not going to see the same sort of dominance. It's not going to happen with Furlong and Porter and Kelleher, but 1 or 2 scrums go awry in Leinster, and it could be the difference. But I think that's an area that really got to be good on tomorrow against Toulouse.
The other game obviously on Sunday, La Rochelle, Racing have gone so impressively about their business over the last probably month or thereabouts. The top 14 blip against Toulouse, notwithstanding, but beat Perpignan, few wins over Bordeaux, nilled Racing. Are they a better side than they were at this time last year?
Or La Rochelle?
Yeah.
I don't know. Will Skelton has a calf injury and is out for a couple of weeks, and he was utterly dominant in that semi-final against Leinster. So teams aren't named yet. Whether he's back or not for the weekend, I don't know. Racing are a side that they're up front. They were poor last week. Their scrum was really poor. I think Sale kind of physically unsettled them. You had that a lot of brilliance. Teddy Tama, Finn Russell, Vakatawa comes off the bench, Gail Fiku, they're kind of world-class players who can come up with a little bit of magic. So I just think it's a hard one to call, this game. I think La Rochelle were impressive in dispatching Montpellier.
Yeah.
They were pretty comfortable in that performance. So it's a difficult one to call. If Racing get their set piece right, they can hurt any team. But I think probably La Rochelle are probably more balanced side, and they have that bit of grizzle and grit up front and power to probably unsettle Racing. But I'm at a hiding to nothing here, as you know. Mike Prendergast's a friend, Roger's a friend, so
Killer.
I can't be. Don't ask me to pick a side.
Well, it's.
Don't ask me to pick a
I
side.
was going to. It sounds like you're saying La Rochelle Leinster final. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent.
Probably, yes. Well, I'd say Leinster and probably La Rochelle.
Well, you have to keep Prendergast sweet now as well with everything going on. Is the obviously the forwards coach was announced during the week. Is the Leamy stuff still happening? Because I think that's the one that most Munster fans are interested about. Do you think?
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, it's still an option, and I think it's something that obviously has to go through the proper channels, particularly when it's an Irish coach moving possibly to another Irish province. I don't have any kind of definitive story on it, only that Munster are pretty keen to explore the option of having him back. I don't know what his personal kind of thoughts are as regards. Of course, I think he's open to it, but it depends. Leinster have been very good to Dennis, and he's a very loyal fella. So it depends what Leo Cullen and Leinster, how they feel about it. But I suppose when you get an option, Adrian, to go back to your home province and get more senior coaching role, I know it interests him. So it just, that one has to play out a little bit within the IRFU and within the two provinces. So it's probably. It's not fair to speculate on it, but it's something that I think Munster want to happen, and I think it probably will end up happening at some stage.
Choosing Leinster over Munster for Dennis Leamy will be a serious one. Come here, just before we let you away, quick word: the nominees for the Players of the Year were out. Mac Hansen, Hugo Keenan, and Josh van der Flyer in the men's category. Very briefly, any names missing off the list, and who wins it?
Well, Mac Hansen has signed a new contract, so you've got to stop fighting with people online about whether he should have.
I was just looking out for you there, Quinny, you know that.
He's had a brilliant season. Great news for Connacht, and that he's signed a new contract. I just think the four defender, Doris, Hansen, Keenan, Van der Fleer, very hard to separate any of them. I think probably for consistency and just impact at international level, Doris and Van der Fleer, and Hugo Keane, it's just so difficult to pick any of them, really. And then the way Hansen kind of shot onto the scene with Ireland was so good. But it's Doris or Van der Fleer for me, given that I played in the back row. I just think, Doris was phenomenal in the November internationals, got player of the tournament for Irish player of the tournament. And Josh van der Fleer is nominated for Six Nations player of the tournament. I just think it's hard to separate either of them. They've both been brilliant for Leinster as well, as have the other two, Hugo Keenan and Mac Hansen. So I don't know. I'd probably go Van der Fleer this time, even though I'm a massive fan of Caelan Doris as well. Very little separate both of them, and I think they'd both probably admit that themselves. They've just been unbelievable this year.
Yeah, and when you add Jack Conan into the mix in terms of what Leinster have in that department, obviously heading into this weekend as well, it's frightening. Linda Dugang, Eve Higgins and Sam Monaghan for the Women's 15 Player of the Year. Quinny, what are you thinking?
Well, watching the Eve Higgins and Sam Monaghan, the performances they've had have been exceptional. But I think for consistency and continuous consistency, Linda Dugang has been, brilliant, and she's my Player of the Year if I was picking it. Obviously, they had a bit of an up and down campaign, and were under pressure, and that France and England game was difficult for them. But I just thought some of the offloads and some of the carries that she made and defensive work was outstanding.
Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to your prediction of a Leinster La Rochelle final, Quinny, and we will. I'm putting you into the frying pan here. We'll catch up with you again early next week. Go man, enjoy it.
Cheers. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks a lot, Alan Quinlan on the line there. Right, it is 9:36. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and we are brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And as part of his special report in North London for the Spurs-Arsenal game last night, Eoin met up with his fellow Arsenal fan, legendary Ready Steady Cook chef for the one and only Ainsley, Harriott, of course, to talk all things Gunners and of course delicious food as well. Snippet here of that very chat. You can catch the whole thing across our social channels right now, and also hear more from the iconic duo John Giles and Eddie Gray from last night's show. So that is upcoming in just a moment's time. We're back on Monday morning 7:30. Ger and Owen will have the Gillette Labs performance rankings, Gaelic football with Anthony Moyles live in studio. Mark Lawrenson will discuss and look back on the FA Cup final reaction as well, of course, this weekend's Champions Cup with that man Alan Quinlan. Have a great weekend. Here's the dream team for you: Eoin Sheehan and Ainsley Harriott. Enjoy.
Listen, Ainsley, before we let you go, there is one quick game we wanted to play with you. This is the most important part of our conversation. Okay. I'm sure you're vaguely familiar of a Twitter account called Footy Scrans, where they tweet some of the best stuff, or worst stuff, from around the football grounds. Okay, the first one we're looking at here is a pizza slice at West Brom. So can you give all of these a rating out of 10?
I didn't know that there was a pizza slice. It looks very, very cheesy. Looks like a nice crust there. Out of 10, 4.
Good stuff. Okay, so we got a hot dog at Tranmere Rovers next.
Oh my God! Too much bread, not enough sausage. 3.
We've got a bratwurst in a bun at Hertha Berlin next, which is this one.
Wow. Look at the mustard on that. Hertha Berlin. I'm going to give that a few more. I'm going to give that a... there you go, guys. There it is, like that. I'm going to give that a big 6, because I just think that the sausage looks charred there, which means you're going to get the right sort of texture. Loads of mustard. Not too much bread. At least you've got the sausage, more sausage there than the previous one. Look at that. I mean, that is pretty disastrous. More bread than sausage. Carry on.
Can you have too much sausage for bread? Or it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter. I think you've got to get the balance right. I think that, there's something about it. A hot dog works well when you're biting through the soft texture into the meaty sausage, and if you've got your mustard or your ketchup or a bit of onions, it all works. It's when there's too much of one thing, it doesn't work.
So the next one we're looking at here is a sausage and a flatbread at the Norway Cup final.
At the Norway Cup final. Well, that is, it does. That is very much in a flatbread. I think I'm going to go, because it looks like if you're hungry, you can get a choice of the mustard or the ketchup. We're going to give that a 5.
Yeah, good stuff. The next one, if you want to swipe on, is a 2 sausage hot dog with teriyaki sauce, seaweed, and scrambled egg at Yokohama FC.
Wow, now we're talking about taking it beyond what it needs to be, really. Yes. What is it wrapped in? What did you say that bread was?
Well, I think it's just a regular hot dog bread, but it may have been coloured black. I think it's.
There it is again. I mean, that is pretty intense, isn't it? Obviously, flavours are different parts of the world that you go to. People like different flavours, different textures. But just looking at that, I think that could be quite interesting. You know, I've got a friend of mine, and when we go to eat and we stay overnight in a hotel, and he comes down in the morning, he has a picture of toast on his phone, which is pretty black, and he says, that's how I want my toast. And I think that's a really good way of doing it, because you say, I want it well done. It's not enough. They still bring it. But if you show them a picture of something, and you said, that's how I like my hot dog. So I'm going to take that I'm going to give that a 6, because I just think that we don't know enough about it. Let's knock it till we try it. And and I like the fact there's a 2-dog job.
Yeah, me too. 2 sausages better than 1. The next one is cheesy chips at Billericay Town.
Cheesy chips. Thing about, for me, cheesy chips, cheese needs to be sort of semi-melted. So those chips need to be either really, really hot, which they're not really, because when there's a quick turnover, they don't just come straight out the fryer, crispy and nice like that. I think they need to be slightly melted. So what I would have loved is if they had a tub. Do you know when you get that kind of cheese that you put on top of nachos? I think they should just have something like that melted, and said with or without cheese, and just drizzle that on the top. That would work more than just grated cheese. So I'm sorry, because it's cheese and chips and people like cheese and chips, I'll give it a 4.
Yeah. Billericay Town, you've heard the man. Get some proper melted cheese. The next one is just mushy peas at Notts County for £1.50.
Mushy peas for £1.50.
On its own.
On its own. Peas that's cooked down with a bit of bicarb soda in it. I don't know what else they put in there. Bit disappointing, really. It's almost like we've run out of everything else, but we've got some mushy peas left, so you can have that. I'm going to give it a free.
It's amazing England actually conquered the world, isn't it, when you look at a dish like this?
I know, exactly. How could you conquer a world without a bit of mushy peas? They do make you break wind, but anything with too much bicarb. So I think we'll have a whole row of people eating that, and then afterwards it'll be trumped and...
The next one, we're almost there. Chips, peas, gravy, and mint sauce at Basford United. Mint sauce and peas. This is a big thing.
I should imagine that it is, and I can't. Just how did they get to that stage? That's what you've got to ask yourself. How did someone sort of say, "Oh, I've got some chips. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put a bit of. I'm going to put some peas on top of that. A bit of mint sauce. I'm going to try a bit of that. Peas and mint. We can get that. Plus the gravy. Plus the chips. That's like a little heart attack there, really, isn't it? I mean, that is a little mini heart attack. So I think that, if you're young and easy, you can have that. But as you get a little bit older, I'd avoid it. But I'm not going to knock it too much because I know those type of things are quite sort of unctuous for people. People kind of like that type of stuff. And so I'm going to still say, 4, 5? Yeah, that's it.
Next one is the roast potatoes with beef gravy at Huddersfield Town.
Well, roast potatoes and beef gravy. If you've just about managed to miss your lunch at home, but you want to just capture a little bit of a taste of what it could have been like. But what's the name of the club?
This is Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, but Huddersfield Town are playing at home. So, Mum, ain't got time to have me lunch. I've got to go there. This is like a little teaser. This is your roast potato and beef gravy canopy. Hence the 2 pints of lager to wash it down. You'll need a good kip after that. I'm going to give that a 5 because I like the idea. That gravy, there you go. If you look at that gravy, it doesn't look too sort of blobby or globby. It looks like a proper gravy, and I think that you can get your roast in there. Not a chip. You can squash it down a little bit into it and then put that back in there.
There's eating and drinking in that gravy, which is the most...
There's everything in that gravy. There's everything's going on there.
Just 3 more to go. So a steak pie in a roll. Now, Wigan kebab, I think, is probably what you guys call it.
Steak pie in a roll. Well, the idea of having a little crimpled edge around a pie is that's what you hold when you eat it. But you obviously want to consume the whole thing here. I think it's a bit lazy, looking at the quality of bread. But at least we're going somewhere towards having a bit of meat. Which I think there's something like a pie. For me, a pie at football says everything. So I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, good stuff. That's Rochdale. Second last one then is FC Energy Cottbus. This is a salted herring sandwich.
Look at that, guys, eh? Talk about it. Herring. Yeah, boy, that looked good. Why, hello, herring. Oh, lovely. I just love the way they folded that herring too. Looks like they've got a bit of curly lettuce or something in there. Look at that. I think there's a little bit of purple endive or something going in there. Love the idea of it. I said, I like the idea that people have taken this forward. I'm going to go 5, maybe a 6 there. The only reason that I'm taking it a little bit further because I think it's slightly healthier, something a bit fishy. We're getting away from that deep fried thing, and so a little bit of that. I'm not sure whether that is a brown sauce or something like that, but the idea of having a little bit of a little drizzle of something to accompany that would be perfect. Herring, look at that, pickled herring. And finally,
this is from Dundalk FC. So this is our only Irish dish. This is chicken curry and chips. Would you believe it?
Well, yes. You said, would you believe it? I can understand. I mean, it's just been diced up there. There's no colour to the chicken, so it's just plain chicken thrown into a curry sauce. And curry doesn't really give off lots of lovely kind of ideas that there's lots of beautiful spices and stuff. There's hardly any colour going in there, and you can't see the chips. So back down to 3 again. I'm sorry, Dundalk. I think you could do a better job than that. If you went to your curry shop that night and went out for a curry and they put that on your plate, would you be happy?
Be overly delighted.
You wouldn't be delighted. But you know what? regardless of what we've seen here today, I've got to say that this is what football does. You do things at football that you don't normally do, like eating a pie, like having curry and chips, like having a herring in a roll, or, you know, a sausage that is so plain there's nothing going on there. But you know what? You do it because you're at football, and you just need a bit of fuel because you're there to support your team. And the most important thing tonight is to support your team. I'm supporting Arsenal. I'm sure you are too. All you Spurs fans out there, good luck. But, you know, let's just hope it's a great game. Let's hope it's one of those memorable ones that we say, did you watch? Where were you? Did you see that game? Come on, you Gunners. Come on.
Ainsley, Harriott, a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great. Cheers mate.
That was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it also marks 50 years since Leeds United won the FA Cup for the one and only time in the club's history. The 1972 final saw them beat Arsenal by a 1-0. The only goal was scored by Alan Clark 7 minutes into the second half. And two men who played in that game are with us. John Giles is still on the line, and his good friend Eddie Gray has been good enough to join us as well. Good evening, Eddie.
Good evening.
John's just been telling us you've had a good week of it.
We've had a good week, yeah, with a few celebrations, celebrating that cup win, which was a famous victory for the club. You know, the first time they'd ever won the FA Cup, and still the only time we've ever won the FA Cup.
When you go back, Eddie, and when you're at meetups like that with John and the players of that era, what are the games you end up talking about? Or maybe you don't end up talking about football at all, but are there games of your time together, and that group is so well known and you spend so much time, are there certain games that really stand out more than any others?
Well, obviously when you win the FA Cup, and it was the first time the club won the FA Cup, we don't really get into details, a lot of details about individual games, but just about the time we had together and, you know, the way the players could play, the number of big matches we played in, you know, it all adds up to, you know, like at a particular time, like a great period for Leeds United Football Club. And obviously Johnny was a big part of that, and I played in a lot of games as well. So it was a great time, and it's still great when you meet up and talk about these games. We don't get into details about the games. We just reminisce about certain things, you know, and it's nice to see the lads again.
John, the FA Cup, we talk about it now, has not been as big as it once was. It was absolutely massive in the 60s and 70s. And reading about the game, Billy Bremner was quoted in advance saying he'd won a league title, he had won cups in Europe, he'd won any amount of caps in Scotland. But the one thing he wanted more than anything else was an FA Cup. Can you put into context for people who don't remember that time, in compared to leagues, European Cups, just how big an occasion an FA Cup final was?
Well, yeah. Well, the FA Cup final was like Grand National Day in the racing. It was once a year. It was on the television from 11 o'clock in the morning, going through the games. It was just like a national day, and the history of it was fantastic. And I think most players, to be honest, would rather win the cup than the league, and certainly a lot of their own supporters would. Because the league could be won, had to be won over 42 matches, as we know. But Cup Final Day was Cup Final Day, and it was a glamour day. It was huge. They had 100,000 at Wembley, and there wasn't much football on television in the early days, Nathan. You know, so it was a big treat for people as well. But everything stopped. It was a national day, and at that time in 1972, when we played there, that's what it was, and that's why it was so big. You know, like if you talk to football people, well, Eddie's great on football and on the history of it. If you ask people who won the league in 1971 or 2 or before, most people wouldn't know. But most people who follow football would know who won the cup in 69, 70, 71, 72 and before. It was National Day, and it was a glamour day, Nathan.
That was a special FA Cup final as well, Eddie. It was the centenary FA Cup final. The Queen was in attendance. John talks there about the glamour. As a club and as a group, was it treated differently in terms of how you would prepare for the game? Would you get to stay in a better hotel the night before the match? Were the special cup suits? Were there more family members brought?
I mean, it's a one-off game then, the cup final. As John says, it was the most important single game in the whole calendar. And it was a game that everybody was looking forward to. You know, and I'll never forget, you know, like when you go to Wembley, I went to Wembley in those days, you're driving up Wembley Way and you see the Twin Towers. It was a great feeling of excitement. and you're looking forward to it so much. And thank goodness, after disappointments we had in a few cup finals, the club, we eventually won it when we beat the Arsenal. And it was a great day for everybody connected with the football club.
Those couple of defeats, John, the defeat after extra time to Liverpool in 65 and then after a replay to Chelsea in those infamous games from 1970, how much pressure was that on your shoulders heading into this cup final, that having lost to this group of players and the questions about finishing as runner-up in leagues, even though you'd won one of them as well, how much pressure did you feel going into that game to finally win one?
Well, what happened, Nathan, we lost the cup final in 1965 to a great Liverpool team. And that was the first season we were promoted. We finished up runners-up in the league and runners-up in the league, which was a fantastic effort to do that, right? So that was in 65. When we played Arsenal in the cup, it was 1972. So all the players that played in the early cup, Paul Reaney and Norman Hunter, these were all young fellas when we played against Liverpool in 65. When we got to 72, all these lads were mature players at that stage. Eddie had come into the team, Peter Lorimer had come into the team, Alan Clark had come into the team, Mick Jones had come in. So it was a totally different team, Nathan, from the first one in 65. There's a lot of new players, and the players who were in, whether it be Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter, Paul Reaney, these were all mature players at that particular stage. So there was no feeling in the team we have to win this because we lost it in 1965. Certainly from the Chelsea match, that went to extra time, as you know, and a replay. And that was just a huge, huge match. And Chelsea pipped us. But we were ready for the match in 1972 in a big way. And we were playing a national team that most people forget had won the double the previous year, Nathan. So they were a very, very, very good team. And we were, I think, 71, 72, I think we were at our peak at that particular stage. Eddie, as you know, is a good pal of mine, was fantastic. Was a fantastic player. Peter Lorimer coming into the team. Alan Clark had been bought, Mick Jones. So we were a totally different team from the early stages.
The Leeds team then, John during COVID picked his all-time Leeds 11. You were in it, don't worry about that. But 10 of them started that game. I'm fairly sure, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Reaney, Madley, Charlton, Hunter, Bremner, Lorimer, Clark, Jones and Gray, and of course you didn't pick yourself, John, of the team. But in goals, Dave Harvey started in goals in that cup final. And watching back the match last night, they mentioned there was only half an hour beforehand that it was confirmed that Dave Harvey would start in goals, that Gary Sprake wasn't going to play, and Harvey hadn't played a huge amount that season. Eddie, was it a surprise to the players, or had you prepared in advance that Harvey would be the keeper?
No, I don't think it was a surprise, actually. I mean, I think Don had made his mind up he was going to play Dave. I mean, Dave was a very reliable goalkeeper. Different type of goalkeeper to Gary. Dave was very steady, didn't make many errors, very confident in his own ability. And it was proved that Don made the right decision. I mean, playing Dave, and we felt comfortable with Dave playing behind us because you knew he was that reliable, solid goalkeeper. And I think John would agree with that. You look, and he's a very important player, the goalkeeper, And, if you're playing in a cup final, you get a few nerves, but Dave coped with it very well that day.
I think what happened as well, Eddie, at that particular time, to be fair, Gary had a lot of chances, he made a lot of mistakes. But Dave actually played in the semi-final, Nathan.
Yes.
Right.
He played in the semi-final. And
so
that
he beat Birmingham in the semi-final.
Day.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't know, and Dave himself didn't know until we had a team talk that Gary was left out. But he played in the semi and played a few matches leading up to the final to play in the final. But Dave was a very, very competent goalkeeper. Gary, at that stage, I think his nerves had gone. He was making quite a few mistakes around that time, Nathan. So Dave was solid and did his job.
Was that a talking point around the dressing room, Eddie, about Gary Sprake? Because I know it's come up many times, John, we talk about it, about the mistakes he was starting to make and Don Revie keeping faith with him maybe a little bit longer than he needed to.
I mean, my opinion on Gary, I must be honest and say I think Gary was one of the best natural goalkeepers I've ever seen. But once the media get heavily involved in games were on the television a little bit more, Gary got a little bit nervous and he made a few errors. I think Don made the right decision, when we played in that cup final. I mean, we had the cup final before, when Chelsea in the replay, it was a game we should have won. So I think, I think it was always in Don's mind to bring Dave into the side at some stage, and he did it at the right time. I think, looking back in the history of the two goalkeepers, and as John says, Dave was a very able goalkeeper, and as I mentioned earlier, not flash, just did his job, and he did the job very, very well.
John, I thought from talking to you through the years that the centre backs at Leeds were meant to leave the pretty stuff to yourself and Billy Bremner. Let you do the passing. I was watching Norman Hunter, and he constantly got in the ball and constantly looking to get on it, and his ability to just shimmy past it a striker if he needed to, and pick out a pass to yourself or Bremner, or spray it out to the wings. Like, I know you've never been one for would players of the past make it in the modern era, because they would adapt in whatever way they had to. Like, he played like a thoroughly modern centre half in that match.
Yeah, well, Norman Hunter was a great player. And he had this reputation of Norman bite your legs. He could get stuck in, of course he could. But Norman, in my opinion, I think Norman was a great player. And when he had to do things like that, he never would do them if Eddie was there, or I was there, or Billy was there. Actually, he used to give out all the time, Norman, between Billy and myself, because he used to say, when he got the ball, if he gave it to me, Billy would be on to him. And if he gave it to Billy, I'd be on to him. But I used to say to Norman, you're very lucky. There's a lot of players play, when they get the ball in that position, they've nobody to give it to. But Norman could do whatever. Eddie will tell you about Norman.
Yeah, Norman Hunter was a great footballer. Brilliant. I mean, as John says, Norman had this reputation, bite your legs. But Norman was a terrific footballer, great passer of the ball, confident on the ball. But he knew he had players in front of him, though, like Johnny and Billy, that could create a lot better than he could. So as soon as he got the ball, that was the first thing Norman thought about. And that was one of his great strengths, I think. If he thought Johnny and Billy were on, he would knock it to them quickly. If he thought I was on, or Peter Lorimer, he would hit that cross-field ball to Peter. That was that was how he was such a great player. He did the right things at the right time, Norman.
He loved playing as well, Nathan. He loved football.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he used to say that, when I get the ball, he very seldom had a chance to use his ability, because Billy or I were there, or Eddie was there. But when he had to do it, he could do it.
Oh,
he used to say, you two little so-and-sos are coming back all the time. And I remember Don, I don't know if you remember Eddie, I think it was after one match, he might have given the ball away,
Yeah.
Which was very unlike him. And after the match, Don was on to give him a right telling off. And he says, Norman, you give the ball to the players that can play. And Norman didn't like that, because Norman couldn't play.
He wouldn't like that. I'm surprised he never got me kicked on that day.
Eddie, when we talk about English centre halves of that era, so often it's focused on Bobby Moore for what he did with England and at the World Cup. And I think John's often said that Bobby Moore was maybe the ultimate big game player, that when it came to a World Cup final, but that actually week in, week out in English football for that era, Norman Hunter was the best centre half.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Team 33. I would personally love to see a manager like Steve Bruce, a manager like Sam Allardyce take over a club that are the richest club by a mile in the world, and see what they do. Live every Friday night on